New York. It's finally spring in the Bronx, and the New York Yankees welcome back an old friend to the stadium. Ian Kennedy was once part of the big three of top pitching prospects for the Pinstripes. Now, he will look to turn things around for Kansas City and get the Royals back to World Championship form. Meanwhile, the Yanks have built a new big three.
The 1-2, swing and a miss, 101.
By season's end, Betances, Miller, and Chapman may just rewrite the record books. The Yanks took the first two games. The Royals look to leave with a split. We have all your enhanced coverage next on MLB Plus. Spring with a preview of summertime. Temperatures in the 70s today. It'll be a gorgeous night, whether you're at Central Park or making your way to the stadium. Where tonight on MLB Plus, presented by Amazon Web Services, the New York Yankees host for Game 4 of a 4-game series the Kansas City Royals. The Yankees are 6-3 in their last 9 against this team, dating back to last year, and New York has won 2 of the first 3 in this series. Hi there, folks, from our MLB.com studios. My name is Darren Sutton. We'll each senior writer for Sports on Earth, Mike Petriello, MLB.com analyst, and we've got a fun one for you tonight. Let's start, gentlemen, on the mound, and let's start with Ian Kennedy. He is a fun pitcher to talk about, a 21-game winner a couple of years ago, and a guy who this year is finding his way again with the defense behind him of the Kansas City Royals. His first 6 starts, a sparkling ERA of 2.13. Last time out against Cleveland, he was spectacular, a 7-0 winner. He went 7 shutout innings. I will let you, Mike, take Nathan Eovaldi.
Nathan Eovaldi is one of the most fascinating pitchers of the StatCast era because he throws really hard. Only Noah Syndergaard throws the fastball harder than Eovaldi does. Eovaldi at 97.3 miles an hour. But there's really never been the production there because his spin rate is not high, it's not low, it's in the middle. That's how you get fast, straight fastballs that get hit. So we're going to talk a lot about tonight his slider, his splitter, what he's trying to do to complement that fastball. Is really going to be an interesting pitcher to watch.
He's a great mystery. Maybe you can help us solve Nathan Eovaldi and who he is. You know what else is mysterious is how the Kansas City Royals have defied projections over the last couple of years. Now, some would say maybe those projections aren't as strong. Others would say maybe they're coming back to earth. And you would say...
Yeah, I always think about baseball prospectus, famously, their projections. I've always said they've been down on the Royals for a long time, to the point where people went to baseball prospectus and say, hey, what's wrong with your projections? Fix them. Well, we see a team like the Royals now, this maybe is the level they should have been all along, and maybe the last years were the aberrations. I think when we see them now, wonder, like, why are they struggling? Maybe this is actually who they were the whole time.
All right, so that's going to be fun to talk about throughout the night. Now, since we're right around the corner here in our studios from Yankee Stadium, Tim McMaster, Fernando Perez, and Jim Duquette will all be reporting from the ballpark, and you will report back to us. You'll follow us on Twitter and also hashtag MLB Plus. Get involved. Ashley Chavez will be, I guess we'll upgrade her to now the general manager, social media general manager, and ask these guys questions, because if you're watching StatCast for the first time, certainly be able to help you. They will answer your questions about StatCast. We will help you understand just what in the world we are doing. Here it is.
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com's StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLBAM's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with 2 distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture, optical tracking, and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
Right-hander Nathan Eovaldi is on the mound for the New York Yankees, and it is, as we said, a picture postcard night to enjoy baseball at the ballpark. A light breeze blowing out won't really affect the game. And for the New York Yankees and Eovaldi, as they celebrate the United States of America with the national anthem, get ready to go. The right-hander is ready to go, and he does so for the 7th time this year. He's 2-2 with an ERA of 4.78, and that kind of sums up who he's been throughout his career. His ERA about the same fighting through his career, and in a career in which he has made 113 starts. And how does he do it?
Well, he does it with the fastball, and you can see it's always fastball, and then you see the splitter, and that's really what he's been trying to work on. The last couple of years, he didn't really start throwing the splitter until last season, and he's been throwing it a little bit more each year. Because the problem is that fastball, as we talked about, it doesn't miss bats. His spin rate is almost exactly league average. We know that a high spin rate misses bats for strikeouts. We know that a low spin rate tends to get ground balls. His is right about league average. So he throws that 97-mile-an-hour fastball right down the pike, and it gets hit pretty hard. So he's working in the splitter. And also something really interesting to watch is his slider. He's increased the velocity on it from 85 miles an hour to 89 miles an hour. I asked him about it a couple weeks ago, and he said he changed the grip on it, trying to get a different angle, trying to get a different look for the hitters. And so far, so good. He's had a couple of good starts. He took a no-hitter pretty far in the game a couple weeks ago, so just watch to see if he can have these secondary pitches complement that really impressive fastball.
I would imagine, too, when we watch him tonight, more sliders to right-handed hitters, more slower curveballs with regard to spin to left-handed hitters. The lineup he will face is a lineup that will be off-discussed this evening because it's a lineup that is not very patient. There's the exit velocity this year and the aggressiveness of that team. Escobar, Kane, Morales. I'll come back to the man in the middle. Gordon, Perez, Cuthbert, Colon, and Dyson. Eric Hosmer right there in the 3 spot.
You see Eric Hosmer sticking out, 94 miles an hour exit velocity. Not only is that the best in this lineup, it's really a big jump for him. Last year he was at just 90 miles an hour. He was the 20th best first baseman last year in terms of exit velocity. So far this year, 3rd best behind Ryan Howard and Chris Carter. Eric Hosmer has really made an impressive jump forward, and the way he's done it is by improving his plate discipline. 2 years ago, he was swinging at 75% of pitches outside the zone. Last year, 67%. This year, 58%. He stopped swinging at the pitches he just can't put good wood on, and the production's really followed.
Alcides Escobar to lead things off. He prepares defensively. Carlos Beltran back in the outfield, his 3 gold gloves and his 39-year-old arm that is continuing to try to help. But it's good to have him out there roaming instead of just DHing.
Yeah, well, yeah. The problem with those gold gloves is that's starting to rust and turn into erode a little bit. The problem with Beltran, of course, I think when the Yankees signed him, there was this idea that by his 3rd year he'll be DHing. But of course, the problem is this is the Yankees, and they actually need that DH spot in a lot of ways. Tonight it's McCann, and it's funny to think, what Beltran has to do with the bat to really make up for him playing this much defense. He's a better hitter than people have realized in the last couple of years. He's aging better than he thought. But, man, that defense is still an issue. Look for that tonight.
Eovaldi starts Escobar off with a really good curveball and not a slider, and then a fastball that he buries under the hands. Escobar to lead things off, and in his last 10 games has been doing good work. Since May 1st, he's got 15 hits. He's got a couple of walks. He's been on base with a hit batsman as well. 18 times his last 10 games he's been on.
Did you notice what Escobar did not do right there? He watched that first pitch go by. He didn't swing at the first pitch. And that is the Alcides Escobar experience, is to swing at the first pitch, which I'm generally in favor of. I think hitters should absolutely be more aggressive. And he didn't do it, and look what happened. I'm not going to make that correlation, except, yes, absolutely, that's why.
And Eovaldi is exactly the type of guy you probably would want to swing on the first pitch of the game against because he throws fast and straight.
Yeah.
So, and he didn't throw him the fastball there, which is the irony of it.
Right, but he got that splitter, and that's what we talked about. Right? The splitter is really what's going to be his out pitch, and that's exactly what he said when I asked him about it. He knows this fastball, as fast as it is not what's going to get him the strikeouts. He's not Max Scherzer. He's got to have that pitch that looks like a fastball right up until it doesn't. Right there is a really good example of it.
You know what? It's tough to do as he falls behind to Lorenzo Cain. It's tough to have that pitch with that kind of action. Usually you will see it buried down and into a right-hander. He actually is able to have it almost have a hard slider-type bite to it when he stays on top of it. That was quite a clinic, by the way, he put on Escobar. Breaking ball, fastball, splitter. Good night. Thanks for coming.
I think that's why multiple teams have always looked at Eovaldi, with such hearts in their eyes, right? The Dodgers drafted him, and they got Hanley Ramirez for him, right? The Yankees had to give up Prado and Phelps for him. All these teams see this arm, and they think, I can make something out of this guy. It's just been flashes so far. But I think, as we can see so far, even in this game, if he does it right, he can be a really effective pitcher.
Back through the box, and it got Eovaldi. And just trickled far enough away to the third base line where Cain continues what has been a crazy hot series. Look, this is a couple of nights ago. Out of nowhere came 3 homers in a game for Cain.
And he needed it, too, because he really had been struggling. He'd been striking out more. But to hit those 3 homers there, it did seem to help him kind of turn that a little bit.
Can I say that I'm not totally buying the Lorenzo Cain experience?
Yes.
Because the 3 home runs were awesome, no doubt about that. But if you're worried about a guy who's been kind of below average for the first month, I think he needs more than one night to turn it around for me. But
the contact rate is way down this year.
I mean, a lot of things about Lorenzo Cain are way down. When we talk about the contact rate, that's kind of a Royals-wide
Yes, it is.
So
that'll be coming up a lot tonight.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that. But as far as Lorenzo Cain's strikeout percentage up from 16% to 26%, which is huge. Obviously, it didn't bother him so much that first time.
He got Tanaka a couple of times, and he got Miller once in that 3-homer game on Tuesday. Good curveball to Hosmer. Tried to paint the outside with that fastball. With regard to fastball movement, does it get a ton? Does it get a ton of dive? Does he throw a lot of 2-seamers?
No, he barely throws any sinkers at all. He used to when he first came up. Right now, he is almost entirely 4-seam, slider, split, and sometimes the curve. But he's really got to get the slider and the splitter to work. And that's really what the splitter would be his best weapon, because he's got this fastball. And if you can get the splitter to kind of do the same thing right up until it dives at the end, that's where he's going to be the most effective.
If you throw a bunch of pitches that don't move, when you throw one that does,
right.
all of a sudden it's really effective. It's funny how that works.
And then it works both ways. By proxy, that should hopefully make your fastball
feel like it's moving more and faster.
This is what we talked about Rick Porcello a couple weeks ago. He stopped throwing the 4-seamer as much, and then it got better because he started throwing the other pitches. And then when you got the 4-seamer, you're like, wow, look at that.
Fastball right in on the hands and fought off. Nice job pulling his hands in. What a year it's been for Eric Hosmer. All the way into third. Good aggressive base running. That's one thing the Royals have done the last couple of years, is take that extra base. But Hosmer continues what has been a really, really good season. He's reached now in 32 of the 34 games in which he's played.
He's been outstanding, and he kind of has to be, right? Yeah. Mike Moustakas, third baseman, got off to a really good start, and now he's injured. And then you look at the rest of the lineup with Lorenzo Cain, the home run game aside has been kind of below his usual this year. It's got to be Hosmer leading this offense, and we've seen that all year. And then, tonight he drops in that 96-mile-an-hour 4-seam with a spin rate just a touch below league average, so straight, and he dumps it right into the right field.
This is such a vintage Royals here, by the way. This is the Royals everyone keeps telling me they've been for the last 3 years. Infield hit, bloop single, advance the extra base. This is the whole Royals.
Coming after you tonight. They're coming after you in your projections tonight. Kendrys Morales. He has certainly fallen back to earth. It's been a tough year for the veteran, hitting below 200 and on base below 250. As he dips into the hole, 0-1 the count on Kendrys. He did have a good year last year. Really good year. Found himself actually guys getting MVP votes last year.
Considering how that signing was generally mocked in a lot of places when they did this.
It was, and then what'd they get him for 2 and 18 after they let Billy Butler go for 3 and 30. And Billy Butler has not worked out very well.
Yeah. It's always good to remember when we talk even about the projections. Talk about the Royals getting back to normal, but that trade among all our sabermetrics people was that, well, Bean must know what he's doing. He's bringing in Butler, and nope, that is not how it's turned out at all. It reminds me of a phrase I heard one time: "You cannot predict baseball." It sounds vaguely. I feel like I don't remember where I came.
I think there's a Twitter account.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard of it.
They shift dramatically for Morales. His last 16, it's been a different kind of go than the man who he's hitting behind. His team is 5-11. He's just got 8 hits. That's a 131 clip for Kendrys.
He's had an interesting year because he is actually hitting the ball harder than he did last year.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, he's hitting the ball a mile an hour harder, which should be great. But everything else, all the other indicators are going the wrong way. His walk percentage is down from 9% to 5%. Strikeouts up. We're going to talk about that a lot. From 16% to 20%. And he's got the opposite of Hosmer's plate discipline improvement, where he's going after more of the pitches he shouldn't be able to hit. You see right there, he hit into what is a double play.
Well, it's a pretty play by Starlin Castro as well.
It's funny because the Yankees are, we've talked about Girardi's anti-shift notion there, but that not only was a perfect shift, but it was a perfectly played double play shift, which is something that you still see teams struggling with a little bit.
Yeah, he can't hate the shift too much because he's actually still using it.
Of course, and using it to great effect right there.
Castro moving over and playing second base from that shortstop position. Key here is he knew the runners.
It's a nice turn for a guy, like you said, who's doesn't have a lot of experience at second base. And that's not necessarily the kind of motion a shortstop has to make all that much, taking the ball and go to your right like that. So it's a nice play for him.
Well, frankly, that's a motion that not a lot of second basemen make. Like, he's way over there. That's basically a first baseman play running the other direction. So that's all the more impressive.
That's what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, so that is the definition of the shift, right? Yeah. 3 men on the right side. Castro set up exactly where they think Morales is going to hit that ball, maybe a couple steps over. And if they're not shifted like that, that ball might sneak through.
Yeah, and that's such a strange pivot. Like it's hard to think of another position on the field. Very rarely do we see anybody standing there having to throw to second base in that direction. It was the advantage of finding the 2 slow runners the Royals have.
By the way, nice job for Eovaldi. That's the 5th double play he has rolled up. He is well above league average when getting the opportunity to get a couple of big outs. First inning, which means trouble, although for Ian Kennedy it hasn't been trouble this year. But these Kansas City Royals have had to dig out of holes, and whether that ties to their offensive pressing, their struggles, or maybe it's just who they are supposed to be, we're not quite sure, but this is who they are in the first inning.
Yeah, that's not a good list to be anywhere on, really, but especially tied for the bottom spot there. So, whether that's a real thing or just kind of an early season blip, who knows, but it's definitely something that they're going to have to worry about for at least the next 3 outs.
Yeah, I was going to ask you real quickly, sorry about that, and you can answer this. As we play now here in May, just getting into May, is it almost too early for that to have a huge impact? Is this too small of a sample size, that graphic?
Well, it's not for nothing that all 5 of those teams, particularly 4 of those teams, have issues with their starting pitching.
It's not an accident.
Right.
I don't think you'd see a team, like just take the Phillies, for example, who have had great starting pitching. They're not going to be on that list. But it is early enough in the season that if you have, 1 or 2 really bad explosions where you give up 8 runs in the first inning, that's going to weigh on your ERA for weeks.
But I'm going to bet if you look at the worst ERAs in the second inning, you're actually going to probably find a lot of those teams as well.
Well, bad pitching is bad pitching.
Bad pitching is bad pitching. That's exactly right.
Ian Kennedy, his 7th start of the year. He's got 4 wins. He's got a 2.13 ERA. Mike, this is how he does it.
Yeah, Ian Kennedy is coming off an interesting year. Obviously, he throws the 4-seam a lot, both fastballs a lot, really. But coming off an interesting year, he played in San Diego last year. That's the best park any pitcher could possibly want. He allowed the highest OPS of all qualified pitchers last year, playing in San Diego. And so that's when he got that contract in the offseason from Kansas City. I think a lot of people were really kind of confused by it. But he's a different pitcher. And so he made a change last year at the end of May. He shifted towards the first base side of the rubber. I think that's probably something we can watch tonight. Before that, he had a 7.15 ERA. Since then, the rest of the season and into this season, a 3.12 ERA, which is actually outstanding. He got strikeouts went up from 21% to 25%, cut his home run rate in half. He's been a different pitcher. Still don't know that I would have given him the contract, but I understand now why they did, because he's actually been pretty effective for almost an entire year.
Yeah, and another change that he's made this year has been his outfield. That is a substantial.
Go on.
Yeah, exactly. It's no longer Matt Kemp running around out there. This is this was the Royals' theory when they were mocked a little bit for this signing. This was the idea, was that the good defensive outfield was going to help a fly ball pitcher like him, and so far we've seen it.
I mean, you really hit on it. He's a fly ball pitcher.
Yeah.
He didn't just go from like an outfield to a decent outfield. He went from probably the worst defensive outfield in baseball, and it wasn't just Kemp. Will Myers out of position in center field and just nothing left. To we all know the Kansas City outfield is elite, and we have some numbers that are going to back that up. That you can really see the difference for Ian Kennedy on balls that are just hit to the outfield. He hasn't been that different of a pitcher when it comes to letting up balls to the outfield, but they're just not landing.
On Will Myers and Lorenzo Cain, there is a difference.
Yeah, well, and Jared Dyson and Matt Kemp,
no kidding.
and Alex Gordon and Justin Upton.
Without question.
Kennedy trusts his fastball. That's all he has thrown to this point. The count is 2-2 on Gardner, hitting just .235. He's got a nice on base of .371 this year. There's that trademark Kennedy curveball as he tried to grab the outside corner with it. Got a good tight 12-6 break on it. His changeup, that unique grip where instead of the true classic circle change or a palm change, he splits the middle finger and the ring finger, the Vulcan change for you Star Trek fans. And it's a good pitch. It's a really good pitch against lefties.
It's a logical pitch.
There he is, a guy that believes in his fastball, and that time, there's your outfield. Comfortably with the range into the corner, and Gardner is erased by his really strong, maybe younger version, defensive counterpart, though they're about the same age. One staying a little bit younger. Gardner at the top, Castro, Teixeira, McCann, Hicks, Gregorius, Romine at the bottom. It's been a struggle for Chase Headley.
It has been, to say the least. He's still, by the way, if we see, what has been your favorite Chase Headley extra base hit this year?
Boy, how could I choose?
How could you choose? Because there have been zero. He is at 102 plate appearances and has 16 singles.
September 27th. That was his last extra base hit.
Wow, that was
last year.
Do you remember who we all were? We were different people back then. So yeah, it has definitely been a struggle. But one of the situations that they have is there's nobody else to put there. This is the general problem with the Yankees. There's really not a lot of options that they have.
I mean, the whole left side of the infield, because Didi Gregorius, he's been a pretty good defensive shortstop to his credit, but the offense just hasn't been there, and that's kind of rough for a team that's been struggling to score runs.
And again, runs, obviously, particularly individual runs, is kind of a shaky statistic. But just for perspective, Gregorius and Headley have had 208 plate appearances this year and have scored 12 runs. That is not a way to actually win.
Is that bad?
That's not good. That's not good.
There are 21 pitchers. We talked about this with extra base hits this year in the National League. He went fastball, he went cut fastball, he went back to the fastball. It's driven out into the bleachers and right, and Starlin Castro, for the 4th time this year, will round the bases. The Yankees grab the lead 1-0.
He's been their best hitter.
We've been talking, we've done a lot of these Yankee games on MLB Plus so far. We've been talking a lot about the Yankee offense and their struggle to score runs and everybody up and down, except Starlin Castro has been outstanding. And he's a guy we've seen be productive with the Cubs. He's had a very up and down career. This really looks like it's going to be one of those up years, and that's exactly what the Yankees need.
It's also worth remembering, he's 26. This is still when he should be peaking. He started so early with the Cubs.
Center cut fastball again. He really started him off with a good cut fastball, went back to it. He lives and dies on that pitch. You won't see him change dramatically as he goes right back to Teixeira with the fastball. Castro's been great at home, too. Lefties always get love for hitting in that ballpark. Castro has just been comfortable in this ballpark, and that's one of the reasons why. You let a ball travel a little deeper in your stance like that, and you get rewarded with a homer?
Yeah, and it is. I mean, Castro's such a fascinating player because he came up so early with the Cubs, and people thought he was going to be the next great shortstop in a lot of ways, and then obviously struggled, and then a whole new kind of Cubs regime came in. But again, he is 26. He is theoretically hitting his peak, and so far, listen, this is a team that really needs some hitters in their 20s, and they have one in him anyway.
Castro with a smile through the dugout. That first inning bites again. Maybe there is something to it. Maybe it's not too early.
I'm going to take full credit for that.
That's entering today.
Breaking that tie with the Tigers.
You're right, though, Will. When you look at those rotations, the Angels, the Marlins, obviously, they got Fernandez, and Adam Conley's been a big surprise for them, so that one's actually surprising me. But for the most part, those are just not rotations that are probably good in most other innings as well.
Mark Teixeira didn't play Tuesday or Wednesday, neck problems. He was 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts in the opener. He's got 4 hits in his last 11 games. 4 hits in his last 11 games.
So Teixeira, excuse me, I was going to say, exit velocity is down 2 miles an hour, but I don't think that's really his biggest issue. Nor is it the fact that his strikeout percentage is up from 18% to 24%. Probably a little higher now than we just watched.
Near 25.
Launch angle. That's what sticks out to me, okay? Because launch angle measures the angle as you go back to the pitcher. His is up from down from 13 degrees to 4 degrees, which means he's hitting a ton of grounders, which is not what he wants to do.
Defensively, the outfield that you talked about, the infield of Cuthbert, Escobar, Colon, and Hosmer, with Alex Gordon in left field, and it's an interesting outfield comparison with the two of them, Gardner and Gordon. Kennedy comes right back with the fastball. Teixeira didn't like the call on that high curveball. There's Alex.
He looks thrilled.
He will have his work cut out for him, though, tonight.
It does feel better having him back in Kansas City. That was a big thought in the offseason that he was going to leave. But this is either a peril for teams that come back from championships, or it's he's a local guy. They love him there, but his contract seemed reasonable. But there was a sense that they were afraid they were going to lose him. It does seem to have make sense back there.
There's still the small part of me, the emotional part I haven't completely killed yet, that likes the idea of a star being in the same uniform for his entire career.
Yeah.
And that's very possible with Alex Gordon, and it's very rare these days.
And I think in November you would have thought that was not the case.
I thought he was going to the White Sox.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been a great fit. And
there was some notion that he might go to St. Louis if they didn't get Hayward, but they backed off, and it makes more sense to have him. He's a Royal, and one of the things that's always funny about this is the first time we've seen the Royals, the defending champs. This is Kansas City is a baseball town that's really been in waiting for a long time. We've seen through All-Star voting and everything else, we'll talk about this a little later, just how much this fan base has been eager to have them back.
The two-strike pitch rides high and under the chin of Brian McCann. McCann, 4 home runs, 15 batted in, and on base of 361 this year. His last week and a half slugging over 500. Well, that's a heck of a breaking ball as McCann waves over the top of that one. And either McCann or Kennedy didn't know the count. Kennedy figured he had a strikeout. McCann had to be reminded that was strike 3. So it certainly was a big inning there for the Yankees to get going. Nathan Eovaldi will get going back to work. Hold your thoughts. We'll get back to you because Jim Callis will weigh in. He handles our MLB.com pipeline with the insights of all of our young up-and-coming players. Here's Jim on Nathan.
There must be something in the water at Alvin High in Texas, not only the alma mater of Nolan Ryan, but also of Nathan Eovaldi, another major league pitcher who can throw 100 miles an hour. Eovaldi had Tommy John surgery as a junior at Alvin in 2007, rushed back as a senior in 2008, was up to 93 miles an hour by the end of his senior season, pretty much throwing all fastballs, no breaking balls. That was enough to get him drafted in the 11th round by the Dodgers and to lure him away from a commitment to Texas A&M. They not only gave him a $250,000 bonus, they had manager Joe Torre and big leaguers Chad Billingsley and Jonathan Broxton call him on the phone with the sales pitch. It worked, and it paid quick dividends for the Dodgers as Eovaldi progressed from rookie ball to the big leagues in 3 years, reaching Los Angeles at age 21. Pitched parts of 2 seasons in the Dodgers rotation before going to the Marlins in the Hanley Ramirez deal in mid-2012. Had inconsistent results in the Miami rotation. They wound up trading him to the Yankees in December 2014 in a deal for Martin Prado and David Phelps. Eovaldi's first season in New York was a big success. If you look at his win-loss record, 14-3. The underlying numbers weren't as strong, 4.20 ERA. Gave up 175 hits and 154 innings. You know, I think he's been effective as a back of the rotation option for teams, but I think he might even be more effective if he was using a relief role. He pretty much has 1+ pitch. It's a fastball that averages 97 miles an hour as a starter. It's one of the hardest fastballs among starters in the big leagues, but it's more power than finesse. He's okay, but not great with control and command. His slider, his curveball, and changeup are all kind of fringy pitches. For now, I think the Yankees will continue to use him in the rotation. If they get a better option, they might make him a late-inning bullpen weapon.
A little historical perspective on Anthony Eovaldi as he goes back to work, and it was that split-fingered fastball back in the first inning that was devastating. He had really set up Alcides Escobar effectively and got him to strike out with that split-fingered fastball. Pitch that dives down and away to a right-handed hitter. We'll walk you through it at 90 miles an hour.
Yeah, what's interesting about this pitch is his spin rate is at 1,825. His fastball comes in around 2270. And what that means is that as the splitter goes in, it dives at the very end, and that's what causes that effect of the hitter swinging right over it. It looks like a fastball right up until it's not. It can be an extremely effective pitch if used properly, and I think that's what Eovaldi's really trying to get to this year.
It helps when you throw so hard originally.
It covers up a lot of mistakes.
It does.
I mean, I could try to throw a splitter, but I don't think it would matter.
Alex Gordon leads it off. He's 3 of 9 with a homer. He's got a double. A pair of walks in this series. He's had a nice little run. He's been on base 12 times in his last 8 games, and that's what he looks at. 3 defenders between first and second.
Now, I know this is something it's the second inning, and I can feel like we're already beating this horse into the ground. Alex Gordon's had contact issues this year.
Yeah, it's popping up a lot.
His career strikeout percentage, 21%. Last year, 21%. This year, 31%. That's the 11th highest in baseball, and that's a considerable issue, I think, up and down the board for the Royals, because we heard so much last year. Contact, contact, contact. That's how they're winning ball games. That's what makes them different. You can see here, look at Alex Gordon, huge strikeout issues up and down the team, as we said, and I think the whole contact wins World Series maybe a little bit overrated.
Yeah, we'll get into that some more, too.
Jim Duquette is joining us at Yankee Stadium, and he will provide the perspective from the New York Yankees. Jim, thanks for joining us. I know you had a chance to talk with Brian Cashman today, and you had several things you wanted to go over with the general manager of the Yankees, and one of those is health and the advance of Alex Rodriguez, CC Sabathia, and the likes of those gentlemen.
Yeah, They are pretty optimistic, Darren. Guys, thanks for having me on. With A-Rod in particular, he was taking swings today in the cage, and they're hopeful he's going to be back on his 16th day when he comes off the disabled list. So it's encouraging news there from that standpoint. Jacoby Ellsbury, interestingly, has run the bases now for the second day in a row. Still not 100% though, and so I think that before they get him back into the lineup, they have not put him on the disabled list. They're going to keep him active and probably get him 100% in terms of sprinting on the base pass before they put him in a game. So, I think Aaron Hicks has allowed them to play. His play has allowed him to not be put on the disabled list. And so they're buying some time until he's totally ready. And then CC Sabathia sounds like he's close to being ready on his 16th day. They'd be able to come off the disabled list. As you guys know, he's been their second best pitcher behind Tanaka. So that's some good news here. They've been playing well with those, despite the injuries, and may have those reinforcements here fairly soon.
Hey, Jim, it's Mike. I wanted to ask you about Ellsbury. He hasn't played since our MLB Plus game last week, where he hurt the hip going around third base. And they've been playing shorthanded for almost an entire week now. He's not in tonight. They hope he's going to get in soon. But, you've been in this situation before. How long can you really wait before you need to get another body on that bench?
Yeah, Mike, it's a tough decision because, I've been in that spot where the doctors and trainers tell you it's going to be 4 or 5 days, and you don't want to stick him on the disabled list for 15. You'd rather have him back in that 5th or 6th day, and then you get to that 4th day and you realize he's not quite ready, but maybe it's going to take a couple more, and so you're still hesitant to stick him on the disabled list. And so it becomes one of those difficult choices there. Like, okay, if do we send him on the DL and then go without and get backdated, of course, and go with him for another 7 days or 8 days. But Ellsbury's given them the signs that he's close to being ready. So, I think that what ends up happening, Mike, in that spot is, a lot of it is dependent on the team, how they're playing, how his replacement is playing. And Hicks, since we did this last broadcast, is on a tear. And I think that's what, remember, Fernando and we were talking about last week, he just needs a little bit more playing time. And since he's gotten the playing time, he's been producing. So it does buy you a little bit of time to have Ellsbury get himself whole here in the next day or two, hopefully.
For you, I have one question about what went on last night, because I think it was fun for all of us to watch Max Scherzer, and it makes you excited about what's happened with Washington, the long-term commitment with Steven Strasburg, and the dynamic Max Scherzer last night with the 20 strikeouts. I know you keep in touch with the leaders of the Washington Nationals and their general manager Rizzo over there. What can you tell us about that?
I talked to Mike Rizzo today, Darren, about it, and he was the one. He was actually the assistant GM and had in charge of scouting in the Diamondbacks system when they drafted Max. And he's always known him a long time. He remembers him back to his college days in Missouri, and he said that's as dominant of a performance he's ever seen. Max, of course, but it might have been in his years of scouting the most dominant he's seen any pitcher for that matter. And really, when you look at the numbers overall, I mean, I know he gave up the home runs, but 20 Ks, no walks. That's pretty impressive under any circumstance. So I thought it was interesting today when they talked to him. He saw both no-hitters last year. He thought last night's 20 strikeout performance was even better than that.
Spectacular. Obviously, back to the Yankees real quick and the evolution of a couple of pitchers. We saw Pineda work last night. We're watching Eovaldi work tonight. You have to be very patient, obviously, with these two pitchers. When you talk with Cashman, when you talk with Girardi, what are the thoughts on the patience that you have with both of those very talented pitchers?
Well, it's funny when you're talking about a guy like Brian Cashman who traded for both of them. His patience level is a little higher than the managers, as you would expect. And so I think with Pineda in particular, there's a level of frustration that's still there that you're hoping he's going to mature, but you start to feel like he's running out of time. You're running out of time, and I think they were encouraged by how well he pitched. They were pointing to a bad misplay by Ackley. Could have been a double play in that first inning. Then he gave up the 4 runs, but after that second through the 6th, he was pretty dominant until the 2 outs in the 6th. So they were tending to focus on that, obviously, and still see them. That his improvement. I think they're more optimistic about Eovaldi because that split finger pitch that came on the scene last year, you guys were talking about it earlier, and it's continuing to get better. Larry Rothschild had really talked to him about being more consistent with it, throwing it more. And Joe Girardi even talked about it today, about his slider, especially to right-handed pitchers, something to keep an eye on for the rest of the broadcast, as he looks at right-handed hitters in particular throwing that slider.
Duke, thank you. We'll talk to you in a bit.
All right, guys. Thanks. Bye.
Love that. We have reporters all over the ballpark. Man on the street, man in the stands, man in the booth.
He'll be interviewing an ump here pretty soon, I think.
Mic him up.
We have a question for a general manager, so let's just get a general manager on the line. It's pretty easy. That's great.
Carlos Beltran has enjoyed this series, 6 of 13, pair of doubles, 3 homers, and it's been a heck of a series for Carlos Beltran. Hit one over the boards last night.
It's really kind of wild how he's still one of their best hitters. Like, it's been a thing with him. We'll probably talk as he goes along a little bit about his Hall of Fame chances. And I think they'll probably come up. This is someone who, compared to a lot of the players that have been in there recently, is a Hall of Fame type hitter. The question is, as he walks there, in New York, his reputation is different than maybe it is in the rest of baseball. And it'll be worth seeing as the years go along how his reputation continues to be discussed.
Mike, last night with his home run, we had StatCast on it. And again, he took advantage of Yankee Stadium, certainly. But it's one of those that sailed, would have probably gone out of a ball yard on the road as well.
Probably.
Maybe not. I forgot about the guy in the front row that caught it. Aaron Hicks. Here's another guy who's had a huge series.
The thing about the Yankee Stadium, though, is people just have this kind of conception that it's the smallest ballpark in baseball.
Right.
It's not necessarily true. It's really just the lines, right? Because if you look at dead center, it's almost identical to what Kansas City is. And Kansas City outfield is considered very large. So it's really just like down left field, down right field, the right field porch that makes it hugely different for Yankee hitters.
And the hitters can't help to go for it.
You have to.
Left-handed ones. You have to.
Aaron is a StatCaster's dream, right?
Aaron, we were so happy when Aaron Hicks was in the lineup. Are you kidding me? Aaron Hicks, we have talked so much about his throwing arm because he set a record, and I love it anytime somebody sets a record. 105.5 miles an hour. He's got the strongest outfield throwing arm on record, April 20th against Oakland. And as I think I say every time I bring this up, just because we always end up having to show the video, the fact that it was a on-target throw that got the base runner and not just some airmail thing, it's perfect. So he was one of the top 10 outfield throwing arms last year. He's got the #1 overall this year, and he is starting to hit. As Jim said, he started 8 times since even before Ellsbury got hurt, since Alex Rodriguez got hurt. So he's 8 starts, and since then he's hitting 360, 379, 640. You combine that with an outfield arm like that, it's outstanding.
Really nice play heading in just next to the camera well where the grounds crew comes out.
Not quite the famous World Series play. Where the,
Great play by not Mike Mustaka.
Right. But yeah, you talk about Hicks. It's funny, man, for the Yankees, having hitters in their 20s is sometimes handy. I feel like they keep forgetting this, but all these guys that we're excited about, they're all in their 20s, and everyone else, as I can attest, you hit the 30s, man, it all goes.
We were right, though. And unfortunately, Gregorius has just not hit very well this year.
Him being the exception.
But the idea is right. Castro Gregorius up the middle, that's a nice young middle infield. Throwing Aaron Hicks out there, up the middle, or maybe Hicks playing a corner, but whatever, that's not a bad way to go about it. Now you got to get the right players, obviously. But
certainly, Didi can talk about how defensively in your 20s can help a shortstop as opposed to.
Well, after also, let's say, 20 years
of someone not
exactly
that, right. Who, of course, is a hero and wonderful. I'm not trying to say anything otherwise.
Didi beaten with the fastball there. He's 2 for 13 on this series. Gregorius, his last 16 games has had a hard go of it. Team's won just a handful of those 16 games. Outside of this series, he's got 8 hits, 8 strikeouts. You don't want to match those up in an on-base of 189.
He's got 2 walks this year.
There's that on base. That's exactly right.
1.9% walk rate.
Yeah, that's
okay maybe if you crush the baseball, but not when you were in the bottom 10% of exit velocity.
Yeah. That's probably some of those. You should just not swing at those, whatever, even if it's a strike.
Okay, Will, so for Chase Headley,
yes,
it has at least been a positive series. I know they haven't been extra base hits.
Right.
3 hits and a walk, okay? So 3 hits and a walk. Maybe that's a start. We'll see.
September 27th, 2015. Remember where you were when Chase Headley last hit that extra base hit. It's coming tonight.
I can tell you.
I'm feeling lucky.
He actually has a higher walk rate, I think, than last year, which is, it's something, but it's really all about hitting the ball hard. If you look at Major League Baseball this year, 24% of batted balls are over 100 miles an hour. Obviously, that's great. You hit 611 when you hit the ball over 100 miles an hour. So baseball does that 24% of the time. Chase Headley has done that 10% of the time this year. And even the few times he's gotten unlucky. He's only hit 286. So he's not hitting the ball hard. And
when he does, it doesn't work.
It doesn't get him anything.
I feel like though he's so built up when he hits one, it's going 450 feet. He just needs it.
Wait, here's the question. Who had the more unlikely outlier career here, Chase Headley or Ian Kennedy?
I feel like it's Headley. I
believe more in Kennedy?
I do. I probably do.
Darren?
I probably.
Oh, absolutely, Ian Kennedy.
Yeah. No.
I don't know that he, was who he was the rest of the way in 2011, and I don't think he was as bad as he was last year. I don't think he's either one of those guys.
And of course, he did it in San Diego, like a park.
Right. Well, maybe the more relevant question is which one of the third baseman free agent contracts looks worse now, Sandoval or Headley, who signed at the same time?
Well,
remember too, Kennedy did what he did in Chase Field, which is basically Coors Field in the desert.
That's how Jordy Mercer had the longest home run of the year for 3.5 weeks.
3-1 the count. He took it right out of the catcher's mitt. He drives it out of here. It's an extra base hit and a homer.
There you go. You're welcome, Chase.
There's your extra base hit, Chase Headley. He let it travel really deep, and he took advantage, Mike, as you talked about, of those lines and shot it out of here.
Listen, I'm not going to say that was a cheap home run for Chase Headley. I've never been so happy for a player I have no particular rooting interest for one way or the other.
I didn't even hit it that far.
No, he didn't even hit that far. It doesn't matter. He got it out. It's the first one of the year. When we get the data that comes out, I'm going to say he probably got some pretty good one. It's hard to hit a home run by accident. You're right about the lines down there, no doubt about that. But when we see what the data is going to be on this, that's it's not going to be out of every park. It's a couple rows deep. Yeah. So good on Chase Headley. He needs that more than anybody else in the world.
Now, I have to say my excitement level for that, it wasn't quite to Cohen's over Bartolo Colon's homer, but it was pretty close. I'm pretty excited for Chase on that.
So can I say this, though? Remember the stat I was saying before about 100-mile-an-hour batted balls? 98.5 miles an hour.
On a fastball that was about 94.
Yeah, I don't think he'll give it back.
No, I don't think he cares.
So Kennedy had given up just 3 home runs this year before giving up the 2 in the first 2 innings tonight.
Yeah, his fly ball rate is up. I mean, he's always been a fly ball pitcher, and his fly ball rate is up, and that's why he's pitched in parks. I think once he left Chase Field, San Diego, Kansas City, still got to come to Yankee Stadium. We saw what happened to Chris Young the other night. And granted, Chris Young might have been pitching hurt. He's on the disabled list. He and Chris Medlin went on the DL today. But this is still not the park Ian Kennedy wants to pitch in. Even though he came up with the Yankees, this is the first time ever pitching in this park. He was with the team during the first year of the new stadium, only pitched once on the road, never got to pitch at home, and then he got traded. He's never been back since.
Joba Chamberlain, Phil Hughes, and Ian Kennedy, the next generation K.
It's not quite Pulsifer, Entringhausen, and I can't even remember who the third one was.
There's the exit velocity you're talking about at 98.5 miles an hour in the end. Projected distance 355.67 feet.
It's not the most majestic home run you'll ever see, and I guarantee you Chase Headley does not care.
How many homers are under 100 mile an hour? Exactly?
I was just thinking that. I can look it up real quick. My guess is going to be
low percentage.
My guess is going to be about, I'm going to say 12%.
12%. I thought even lower.
Austin Romine, who is in behind the plate for McCann, who's the DH, flies out to right field. Jared Dyson makes the play. The Yankees lead it 3-0. This week, a lot of fun to follow with regard to StatCast. Here's some of the very best of StatCast.
One of the hardest balls I've seen Stanton hit, and that goes well up under the concourse. Early returns, 475 feet. Watch where it ends up.
Lone looking for his first hit of the year. He drives one, deep left field. Back goes Upton, back near the wall. It's out of here! Bartolo has done it! The impossible has happened! His first career home run. This is one of the great moments in the history of baseball. Bartolo Colon has gone deep. His 226th career at bat. You knew if he ever made contact in just the right way, he was strong enough to do it.
The 0-1 delivery. Lined up the gap in the left center field. Pilar running over, running. Dives headlong. He makes a brilliant catch. Throws the ball back to the infield. But he's lying on his stomach. He is not getting up now. He's to his knees. And listen to the hand for Kevin Pilar.
Look at that. I mean, he is airborne, reaching as far as he can.
Best of StatCast from this week. As we told you, we have Yankee Stadium covered. Tim McMaster is out there. We've already heard from Jim Duquette. And Fernando Perez joins us. He has settled in, and he is covering very closely the Kansas City Royals. Fernando, good to have you with us. And for you, when you look at what has gone on this week with Lorenzo Cain, it certainly has been a lot of fun to watch. He's always had his glove, but to see him pop a few over the boards, gain a little confidence, what has been the thoughts and reaction from Cain?
Very interesting swing. I mean, he gets started kind of late, has that inside-out swing, stays inside of the ball. So, there's a lot going on with the swing. He's a young star. He's just sort of coming into his own and understanding what he's doing. I mean, I think this is a guy that has potential to eventually hit maybe 30 home runs a year. So he's slowly getting into that. Obviously, really, really great to see him coming into his own. I think really for him, and I think it applies as well to Alex Gordon, you've got two guys who just got a lot of money. I think that there's a great study to be done in what kind of numbers guys are putting up in the first year of a contract as opposed to the last year before the contract, of course. But also, these are two guys, just like the rest of the Royals team, that played very, very deep into October. So it's very, very difficult to arouse that adrenaline to play, a regular season game in May when you have just had so much extraordinary energy coursing through you from the postseason. So it's not, I don't think it's too much to worry about for this team. They're looking up at the White Sox, who have been off to what, many I think believe might be an unsustainable start. The Royals are a really, really good team. They don't have, many, much of their team firing on all cylinders. So I think that they'll be fine. Not much panic in that clubhouse.
Fernando, it's Mike. When you look at Lorenzo Cain play, we have some data that says that he's just not running as fast as last year necessarily. His home to first times, his fastest one this year wouldn't have made his top 12 or 13 from last year. So what do you see when you see him? Is he bigger? Is he injured? Like, what's making him maybe not, kind of be as effective running as he was last year?
I think that's probably just related to playing so long last year. A lot of high leverage. Innings last year. If you think about some of the greatest moments that the Royals had, he's running around the bases very fast. So it's just going to take a little while. I'd love to see what his numbers are like toward the middle of the season. I think that's something that changes for him. He looks mostly the same. I mean, this is a guy, athletic frame. Perhaps he could be a guy that puts on maybe 20 more pounds and moves to a corner position. Not out of the realm of possibility for him. It's really the sky's the limit for this guy. This is a guy, again, we should remind ourselves as often as possible, this is a guy that learned how to play baseball very, very late, and he's doing a great job.
Fernando, hi, it's Will. How's it going, man?
Hello, sir. Hello.
I'm curious, when you look at the Royals, obviously, you played in the World Series. You stole a base in the World Series. I know. I'll give you your $10 for mentioning it. There you go. But the point is, when you look at the Royals last year, they were not only in first place really all of last season, but definitely playing with this sense that they had an edge. They wanted to recover from losing the World Series in such difficult fashion. People were down on them. They love to yell at the projections and so on. Well, they're six games out now already. I know the White Sox, there's an idea that the White Sox are somehow playing above their head. But is it different after you've won the World Series like that to get motivated? Not motivated, maybe the wrong word, but to get that same kind of, we're the best team and we're going to show everybody right now after you've just done it?
I agree. I mean, hey, I've never won a World Series. I've only lost one. And the team that we had the next year was not so good. And there were actually a number of problems related to, I think, inflated egos, et cetera, et cetera. The Royals, on the other hand, lost a World Series, and the next year they won one. So in that year, you would imagine that, they're playing the game with a sense of urgency. They've smelled it, and they want it really, really bad, and so they're playing that game with a sense of urgency. Having won a World Series, we spoke just before about the idea of playing so deep into October. The off season is shorter. Spring training comes really, really fast. And so it's really, really difficult to get up for those games that, as good of a job that Ned Yost can do in sort of trying to get these guys to have the urgency, a sense of urgency every day at the ballpark. As a player, that these games are absolutely not nearly as important as the games that you have just played. It's really, really tough to trick your nervous system. But, if there's anything that Ned Yost could say to these guys is to explain to them, now, this is an extraordinary team right now. If they show up in the World Series again, now we're talking about a dynasty and a team that's remembered by everyone. Right now, what's interesting about the Royals is that they're a team that people don't really think of them as this championship team. Even last year, after their great finish in 2014, nobody was really, picking this team to do what they did. They're such a quiet team. Nothing, super bombastic about them, really. They're just this team that wins. A whole bunch of guys that are probably going to hit around 270, a pitching staff that isn't, the sexiest pitching staff out there. So I think if there's anything that can motivate them is to start thinking about their place in history. They've got a great chance.
Fernando, it's interesting too. Will's been talking about projections and how Baseball Prospectus and the Bakota projection. This ties into what you're just saying. How those that believe kind of against the numbers and the more traditional way to view the game say the projections must be wrong. If you don't get it right with the Royals 2 years in a row, then obviously it's a broken system. Maybe they've just been completely against the grain, and maybe this is a little bit more this year who they're supposed to be. What are your thoughts on that?
We can only tell if that's true if at the break they're still kind of mediocre. The reason that I am sort of the school of thought that not everything can be accounted for with numbers. It would be a very, very boring game in a very, very boring world if you could account for everything with numbers. I really, at least aesthetically, I really, really like the idea that the Royals are a little bit beyond comprehension and that they have something going on either in that clubhouse, the synergy with their staff and their team, or just the way that this cast of characters actually plays together. I'd love to believe that they have something really, really special that we can't really understand. And I say that knowing that quite a bit of the time when we talk about team chemistry and we talk about the clubhouse, that a lot of times we're making reaches. A lot of times we're assuming that there's something there and trying to put something there when there isn't really something there. If they have a great season again, and it defies the the Pacoda system, what I want to call the Pacoda system, the woman from the Matrix. If it defies that, then we know that they are really, really special.
We appreciate you joining us. We'll talk with you a little bit. Keep an eye on those Royals. Fernando Perez at the ball yard, a member of the 08 Tampa Bay American League Champions championship team. They went all the way to the World Series.
Darren, you asked him something very interesting about the way the traditional people may have gone against the projections of the Royals. Who of the traditionalists picked the Royals to win the World Series last year?
I agree with you.
Nobody. It's
I
not
agree
really
with you.
Numbers versus gut. It's just that the Royals kind of came out of nowhere and did this amazing thing. Depending on your perspective, it's the darkest timeline or the brightest timeline. Right. But it's that 1 in a million shot, and they did it. Like, all respect, and no one's trying to take that away from them. I don't think that makes them a sustainable dynasty year after year after year. I think that's the issue.
And listen, I'm all for the Royals having beyond comprehension be the team slogan for the next couple of years. But it's fun when you think of some of the ways they won that World Series game. When we've talked about it so much, we keep trying to reverse engineer explanations. Every time the Royals win, we're like, oh, they did it because of contact. They did it because of smart base running. And it's strange to think that, when they took those extra bases in the World Series last year, there was this idea like, oh, this is what the Royals have been doing all year. Well, this is also what like a lot of teams have been doing all year.
That's what happens when things go your way. Like they've kind of made a lot of mistakes this year, un-Royals-like mistakes. That's what happens when things aren't going your way. When things are going your way, a great shortstop like Carlos Correa boots a double play, a likely double play. When things are going your way, Eric Hosmer taking off to go home when he probably shouldn't have. It goes your way because Lucas Duda doesn't make a good throw. That's the karma I'm willing to buy into there. Like things can go your way at a certain point, but this was a good team who did well at the best times. We can actually put numbers to that. We can put numbers to clutch, and it kind of had things go right, and they won and they earned it. But I was not on board. This year, the projections didn't like them again, and the traditionalists did. Everybody picked them to win the Central. I was one of the 10% or so that didn't. I was on board the projections, and I get why.
But it's funny. I always think you think of that play, the play with Duda at home. I remember another explanation you heard about that a lot was, well, the Royals' advanced scouts, they knew they forced Duda to make a throw, as if the Royals were the only team that knew that Lucas Duda is not actually a great defensive first baseman throwing home.
And meanwhile, the one Royal hitter who's really been doing well this year, Eric Hosmer, is making Nathan Eovaldi's life miserable right now. Foul ball, foul ball, foul ball. 4 fouls in a row after a called strike, and there's a 5th one. I like that.
Went down and got a good split finger fastball down low. 31 times, an exit velocity of 100+ miles an hour, with his high being right up under 113. He's been the beneficiary of the BABIP gods, if you will, since 2013. 331 for all balls in play, and that includes heading into tonight, from 2013 till tonight. He's got a couple of runners out there. Eovaldi's helped him with of course, a 2-out walk of Lorenzo Cain.
Yeah, I don't want to say it has to be Hosmer right now, but I kind of feel like it's got to be Hosmer tonight. And with 2 men on, in 3rd inning, you're already down 3-0. This is really the time to make it happen.
This is what you want from the Royals.
Yeah, you can hope Sal Perez runs into a home run. You can hope Lorenzo Cain is kind of rebounded. But Eric Hosmer is the only one in that lineup right now who is really consistently hitting the ball hard.
Well, this is generally a problem for both of these teams. There's only like one or two
Castro,
guys.
the Eric Hosmer of the Yankees right now?
That's a sad state of affairs.
Safe lead, certainly, but trying to get something going, as that's a rocket shot and a diving play by Teixeira, with the Eovaldi covering the bag. He hit it hard. There's no doubt about that.
Good at bat, unrewarded.
Baseball great and painful all at the same time. Nice play by Teixeira. His best days with the bat are probably behind him, but that glove, it's still legit.
He's always been good at that. It is funny. Hosmer has that at bat, and Headley hits a pitch off.
Yeah, so we actually looked up the numbers. I asked Jason Bernard, our data whiz here. 20% of home runs are below 100 miles an hour. And so that was only Chase Headley's 12th hardest hit ball of the entire season.
But it went over the wall.
But it was perfectly placed, good launch angle.
Still hit harder than Bartolo Colon's home run.
No, that was the hardest hit ball, I think, in baseball history.
Oh, yeah, I don't think
740 miles an hour, as I remember.
We're going to have some more questions. For I'm told to interrupt you guys, and these great questions are coming. Ashley Chavez is standing by. She is our social media general manager. She is in charge of all things social. These two guys are ready for any questions or any thoughts you might have. Ashley, what do you have?
Well, first off, I have a question for you guys. I did not get a chance to look up the numbers, but I must be the fastest from bench coach to GM in baseball history.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well deserved, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. In a moment, we'll get these tweets going, but I just want to let you guys know real quick, if this is your first time watching the show, the best part about it is that you get to ask these guys all your questions about advanced stats in case you have some questions, which we all do. We all want to learn more about this stuff. So let's get started. This one, and I hope I don't butcher this name, I'm sorry, Amy Gozy, at Amy Gozy writes, watching MLB Plus for the first time, awesome. This is the direction where all baseball broadcasts need to head towards. Couldn't agree more. This is a lot of fun, very interactive. Next, we have from our very own Anthony Castrovins, enhanced coverage of MLB Network showcase games, hashtag MLB Plus on MLB TV, good stuff from Jim Duquette, another good friend of ours.
Yeah, just Jim, though. What about the rest of us? Come on, Anthony.
How could you not? Everyone loves Jim. Everyone loves Jim. And then lastly, from Souvenir City, Royals are the MLB Plus broadcast of the day. Some fun outfield metrics to be had. What do you think, guys?
I think absolutely. I mean, how can you look at this team and not talk about defensive metrics? And here you go. Look at this. Defensive runs saved leaders from the last 5 seasons. Jason Hayward, obviously, but number 2, Alex Gordon. Number 3, Lorenzo Cain. If I'm Ian Kennedy, this is exactly why.
Exactly.
Also, the many millions of dollars, but this is exactly why I signed with Kansas City.
So he goes back to work, Ian Kennedy. He deals with Brett Gardner, who flied to left field back in the first inning. We told you it's been a tough go for Gardner. Last 2 weeks hitting below 200 and an on base right about just 300, so he at least has found his way on a little bit. But much better at the stadium than on the road this year.
Such just a generally underrated player.
Brett Gardner?
In Yankees, just among Yankees fans.
He's just unusual since he's a homegrown Yankee.
Yeah.
Right? And he's been very good, but you're right. I think underrated. They keep trying to replace him. They signed. He was a good center fielder, and then they signed Ellsbury. And now they've shifted him to the left. And he probably has never gotten the credit he deserves just because he's not this big ticket free agent import that they like to use.
Well, I think one of the reasons he was never, the fact he was heralded so much is a reason he was never traded. Like as a prospect, he was not a heralded enough prospect to trade for an expensive veteran, so he's hung around.
But his issue this year is he's hitting the ball in the air too much, especially pop-ups. Pop-ups are death. They're basically strikeouts. His career average 12% this year, 18%, and he just popped out there. I think he hit the ball in the air earlier before.
Starlin Castro went out and got a center cut fastball, let it travel deep into his stance, and drove it to right field his first time up. StatCast powered by Amazon Web Services as we walk you through this home run, Mike.
Yeah, 388 feet, it's not necessarily the longest home run you're ever going to see, but that's okay at this ballpark. You get it over 100 miles an hour. We say 25 to 30 is like the perfect launch angle for home runs, but anything in a few degrees either direction is still fine. That's going to get out of Yankee Stadium and probably a couple other parks, not every park, but you tailor your swing for the stadium sometimes.
Why does that excite me more? It didn't happen that time. He let it travel, but it ran into his knuckles. Good pitch by Kennedy. Why does it seem to excite me more that it had those kind of metrics to the opposite field? It just seems to look a little bit better when a hitter is able to do that and have confidence, not have to cheat, if you will, and generate those metrics.
Yeah, it just always looks good when you go the opposite field because it makes it look like you're not out ahead of the ball. You're actually getting some strength behind it. So that's interesting. I don't know that we've ever actually really done a breakdown of guys who do that to their opposite field, but I think that'd be interesting to check into.
I think it speaks well to Castro too. I mean, that's a problem. Confidence has always been a problem he's had in his career, and to have that come around now. He's becoming the player that the Cubs finally could decide they could not win.
Yeah, and we're like semi-half dismissive of 388 feet. That's still a pretty good shot,
Nice bounce back inning for Kennedy. He gets Gardner in the air, Castro on the ground, Teixeira in the air. So 1, 2, 3, he sits him down after allowing the 2-run homer in the second and the solo home run in the first. Glad to have you watching StatCast tonight, MLB Plus, presented by Amazon Web Services. We answer the question if you're just logged on. What is StatCast?
Royals third baseman Mike Moustakas originally injured his thumb on April 26th in Anaheim on a tag play. He thought it was just a bruise that he could play through. But by the time the Royals left Washington last week, Moustakas said he was having trouble gripping his bat and putting on his coat. And on May 6th, the Royals finally put Moustakas on the 15-day DL with a fracture in the sesamoid bone in his hand. Sesamoid bones are found in places where tendons pass over joints, and they're embedded in the tendon. Your kneecap is a sesamoid bone, and there are 2 at the base of the thumb. They provide a nice, smooth surface for the tendon to slide over, and when that surface isn't so smooth, the tendon can catch and cause pain. Moustakas played through that pain for 2 weeks with the thumb numbed and padded, but finally it became in his best interest to take some time off and let that bone heal. Infielder Cheslor Cuthbert was called up from AAA Omaha and will be making most starts at third base in Moustakas' absence.
So we'll answer that question. What is StatCast? We appreciate that update on Mike Moustakas. Obviously, Cuthbert doing a nice job there, but Moustakas, what he brings to the table is something that they will be benefited by upon his return.
Yeah, I think Moustakas and Hosmer to some extent too is these are the guys who really kind of came up through the system, and they struggled for a couple years. Moustakas was sent back down to the minors 2 years ago, and I think, Will, you touched on this before. This smaller market hadn't won in decades. There's not a lot of teams that could actually let these guys struggle learn to play together, learn to improve, and turn into guys that would lead them to the World Series. Because I think if that was the Yankees, for example, those guys would have been out of there real quick.
The only downside to this, though, is that their free agency clock gets going when they're actually struggling and learning, and that is the problem.
Doomsday is approaching.
After the 2017 season, so we are all, this is prime Royals time here. Yeah, because this is after the 2017 season. Hosmer's a free agent. Lorenzo Cain is a free agent. Moustakas is a free agent. Wade Davis, they've got a club option. We'll see how. We'll talk about Davis perhaps later. Danny Duffy's a free agent. Dyson, Vargas, all of these guys are free agents after 2017. Remember the time when the Royals had this historically great crop of young players coming in? You get old real fast these days because already those clocks are almost up.
So you're saying the 2019 Royals, let's assume Kennedy uses his opt-out, is just going to be Sal Perez and Yordano Ventura.
Yeah, exactly. And Ned Yost. Ned Yost will survive everyone.
But if they play into the postseason this year, if they happen to get hot, not go to the World Series, but just play into the postseason, have some sort of a postseason presence. It's been worth it, right? For 3 consecutive years like that?
It's already been worth it.
I would agree, at 2 years.
I think that it's already worth it. And you know, it is funny because we spent all of this time talking about, did the Royals get overly fortunate the last couple of years? Were the projections too low on them? This is still, like, it wasn't that long ago where we thought the Royals were the future of baseball. All of these great young players are coming up. It's funny because the hitters have generally, even with, they've obviously gone in some fits and starts, but the hitters have certainly hung in there. But really, a lot of those pitchers everyone was so excited about, they didn't work out.
John Lamb, Mike Montgomery, all these guys, you know, Odorizzi was in a trade. These guys just haven't really worked out. And you can see here's the list you were talking about. After next season, there's no way all these guys stay in Kansas City. If they resign either Moustakas or Hosmer, I think that's a win for them.
Well, let's not forget too, like there was a time where trading Will Myers was supposed to be the end.
The Wade Davis trade?
Yeah, exactly. The idea, because that was another thing too, is the thought was, listen, if the Royals, they have so much young talent that if they ever need to make that big move, they can, to theoretically get a starter, say a James Shields, they can use one of those guys. And at the time, all we said was, oh, they're not nearly as close as they think they are, and there they are.
Right. Well, and I remember, you know, people think about that trade, they think Shields for Will Myers.
Yeah, but that was not what it turned out to be at all.
But as I remember, Wade Davis had been an ace reliever for Tampa the year before he got traded, and then he goes to Kansas City, and they didn't know what they had because they put him back in the rotation, and he struggled really badly.
Yeah, so they can't claim too much wisdom on that if they put him right back in the rotation.
That's right.
He's owned the world since they put him back in the bullpen. Gordon, the picture of StatCast's route efficiency, where you see an efficient outfielder up and over 99 in the out of 100 route efficiency rating, and he's a guy that he's got a bat in his hands right now, but he's fun for StatCast defensively, isn't he?
He is absolutely true. I'd like to, if we can compare him to Gardner, we've got some graphics that go for that, and it's just kind of like the absolute tip of the iceberg, what we're going to be able to show, because this isn't really definitive proof of anything. It's just kind of what we've seen during the season so far to compare these two guys, and it's just kind of cool because you could never really compare defense much before, right? You could say, oh, we've got DRS, we've got UZR, but we've got stringers, so there's some really interesting stuff that we're going to be able to show.
This time he tests the outfield as he crushes it deep to right field. Gordon will touch them all into the seats above the bullpen. Wow, did he lean on that one. Alex Gordon for the 4th time this year with a round tripper. And the Royals put a notch on that scoreboard.
That is the first ball hit tonight by the Royals about 100 miles an hour, which is pretty good for Eovaldi right up until that one. 104 miles an hour off a pitch that was 99 miles an hour. So well, you might want to say Alex Gordon squared that one up. And what was that? That was a fastball thrown really hard. Didn't have much movement. It didn't go up. It was just there. And if you can time that up, that's going to go out every single time.
I mean, that is what every hitter dreams of, is squaring up a 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's right there. That's perfect. There might not be a homer he ever hits that feels better than that.
If you could put something like that on your mantle, like this is what I did, that would be one. Yeah. And this kind of goes back to what Eovaldi's problems have always been. He's got this elite arm, but there's just not enough movement, and he hasn't been able to, you know, bring in the secondary pitches well enough to play off that. He's working on it, but just you're still going to see that from time to time.
You know, it's interesting too when we talk about extension with regard to what the perceived velocity is, and this is a guy who stands, you know, close to 6'5", but on that fastball there just a moment ago, the extension of 5.62. You have a guy like Danny Duffy who's getting his extension at times close to 7 feet. Where does that play into like what we just saw right there, the extension?
Yeah, his extension, and you're right, is 5.8 is I think the league average extension, so 5 feet and then 8.8 foot. His is below average for the most part, and that means he's not getting more on it. And we've talked a lot about guys like, imagine if we had this for Randy Johnson, who's getting all his feet off the mound. We Carter Capps, who jumped off the mound, Jordan Walden, who you know. And it matters because you can make it look faster or slower. You don't have to throw from 60 feet, 6 inches. You can choose to throw from 52 feet. You could potentially throw from 45 feet if you were some kind of long-armed monster. But he has not been able to do that. This last pitch, 5.2, that's below average, so he's not really gaining anything on these pitches. If anything, he's losing.
Yeah, the perceived velocity for him is essentially the same. He's not getting any extra advantage from something like that.
And all the hitters really care about is perceived velocity. Right. Where it leaves the pitcher's hand matters less than what it looks like when it comes to the plate.
And so if we see Danny Duffy, I know he pitched last night, he's a guy who maximizes. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, well, I think I heard right before we came on he's going to start on Sunday because
there you go.
Hurt, so I don't think we'll see him tonight, but it's a good point for him exactly because he's the kind of guy who would do well with that.
And Danny Duffy, guy who will get extended. 43 times his extension has been 7 feet or more.
That's really, it was very impressive.
And he's a guy who already throws out of the fingertips, 92, 93, 94 miles an hour.
Especially since moving to the bullpen this year, and we'll see what going back to the rotation does for that. But an extension does matter. We've seen it with a lot of guys. Chris Young, before he got hurt, that's a guy people think has a lot of extension because he's 6'10", he's got these huge arms, but he really doesn't because he kind of throws it high, not out in front of him. And so that really doesn't help him as much as it might otherwise.
Is another guy that's a good thing he has that outfield.
Yes.
For a lot of things.
It's a flat slider left out over the plate, and Cheslor Cuthbert took advantage. An easy double for the young man. That's his first extra base hit of the year. He came in with just 21 at-bats, but there's a double. I should say his first double of the year. He does have a long ball already. Kind of a flat spinning slider right out over the plate.
That's not a pitch that works very much. You can get away with that if you put it a little lower, so it's diving out of the zone. That kind of just dove into the bat, and that's great for Cuthbert, I guess.
The contrast that was really working for him early, where he was working the fastball and then setting up that splitter low, that pitch was neither right. That was just right smack in the middle, flat, easy. There was no contrast. That couldn't have contrasted with any pitch, no matter how hard you throw. A lot of people are going to hit that.
And then this is a story, the elite arm, but just the inconsistent pitches, the secondary pitches that hang up in the zone. The talent is there, and that's why all of these teams really just love the guy and want to see what they can do with him. But he hasn't quite been able to put it all together for more than a couple innings at a time.
See that perceived velocity of about 96 miles an hour because of the extension that Mike was talking about, folks. It was 98 out of his hand.
Yeah, 96 is nothing to sneeze at, but
I understand.
But think about
I understand.
If it's 98 out of the hand, and if he was getting good extension, maybe that's 99 now. Maybe that's 100, and that makes a big difference.
That would have taken my A-ball fastball from 86 to 84. That's why I take a little more personal. And when dives at home plate, just stays alive. So it's interesting. He did it. The one thing Eovaldi's doing, and it speaks to maybe the ability not to close or finish at bats. I mean, he's throwing more first pitch strikes this year than he ever has. He's doing a lot of better things right. He's gotten the more 0-2 counts than he has at any point, and he jumps ahead here 1 and 2. Again, to me, it just speaks to the inability to kind of seal the deal. And it doesn't have to be a strikeout, right, guys? It doesn't have to be.
No, and his ground ball rate is up this year. 2 years ago, it was 44%. This year, it's 55%. So that's great. And his strikeout rate is up this year, too, 18%, 23%. He doesn't need to make this step to be an ace, because that's probably not likely anymore. He just needs to be a solid, reliable mid-rotation starter. And I think that's what he's having trouble getting to.
And it's two-strike pitches like that. And this is what we're talking about, guys. A two-strike pitch is out, up over the plate for a hitter with just 36 big league at-bats this year. Obviously with experience in the major leagues, but just protecting up, out, over, and all he did was just have to serve it into right field.
There's no reason to give him that pitch right there. Like when you're Eovaldi, your stuff is better than that. And there's almost a sense of almost a loss of focus. He knows when he lets go of the ball, too. You can see it.
Yeah, and you're right. Against Christian Colon, who is probably, if known for anything, best known for being the number 4 overall pick in a draft where the top 3 were Harper, Taillon, and Machado. And he was the number 4 pick. And then just ahead of guys, Harvey, Sale, Yelich, Drew Pomeranz. He's not a guy that's really worked out that well. Granted, it's not to say he's a bad player or anything like that, but that's a guy that Nathan Eovaldi should be blowing away.
Right.
Hey, you certainly, as you mentioned, have to tip your cap to the hitter for doing what he's supposed to do with a pitch like that, up, out, over the plate. Eovaldi will tell you that pitch is better thrown at the knees and down. Good piece of 2-strike, 2-out hitting by Colon drives in a run, and the inability of Eovaldi to just have that put-away pitch. Colon 3 RBIs this year.
In the second inning, Eovaldi looked, when he has those 2 pitches going, you wonder how anybody hits it. But then you see something like this and you see why.
But, and you've hit on why a lot of people wonder if he's going to be a reliever someday.
Yes, that was
where you throw harder potentially, and you can ditch the secondary pitches that don't work, and you become that two-pitch pitcher. And obviously the Yankees have that, and Andrew Miller, right? He came up as a starter. The Royals have that, and Wade Davis came up as a starter. A lot of guys have done that. You don't want to do it if you don't have to. It's not like the Yankees have a lot of depth in the rotation these days.
The Yankees of all teams are not going to move a starter to the bullpen right now.
No, I'm not saying they should right now.
Oh, no, I know.
But that's what people say potentially for his future.
It's just 26.
Yeah, it should be noted that I know Evaldi's doing his best to give it up here, but the Yankees have 3 runs. They're 13-4 when they score 3 runs, 0-15 when they don't.
Wow.
So they're already off to a better start than usual.
Also, it's almost half their games where they don't, which is another bad sign.
That's bad.
That's not good.
Nice low spin splitter there, by the way. They dove.
Ian Kennedy working in this game, and Kennedy's team getting him back where they want to be, a lot tighter and closer. His job is to shut things down. Yesterday, he joined us here with MLB.com in the chatting cage, and here's a look back at that.
It's now time for our EDJ question of the day, and the question today is, who has been your biggest mentor in the majors?
I've had a lot of really good ones. I mean, we just happened to be in New York while I came up, so I got a lot of guys in my memories there. Mike Bucina, but was one of them, and a big part of my young career was Andy Pettitte. Watching both of those guys work in between starts, watching Andy work, and he's at near the end of his career, going out there every 5th day, and whether he had the best stuff that day, whether he didn't, he was grinding all the way through. And he's kind of one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to mold myself after a guy like that.
Yeah, having had the opportunity to cover Ian Kennedy up close for a couple of years, he listens. He's a talented pitcher, but he also understands that talented pitchers are around him. He learned a lot from Dan Herron when he was in Arizona. He pays very close attention to guys that are around him that can help him. And I think it's that age-old situation when you think about who Ian Kennedy is, that you take in what benefits you and you let the rest go, but he certainly pays attention. He was part of that big 3 when he came to the Yankees that so much was expected of. When you think of Ian Kennedy, Jabba Chamberlain, and Phil Hughes, and Hughes kind of bouncing back the last couple of years anyway, but it's been kind of a storied journey for all 3 of these guys, right? It certainly hasn't been boring for all 3 of these guys.
And Joba looks happy there, by the way, doesn't he?
That picture's amazing.
But yeah, it is frustrating because, of course, Chamberlain will always also be kind of caught up in the rules, the Joba rules, and whether they handled him correctly. There'll always be I think there'll always be this notion with him of what, if they hadn't messed with him, whether it worked or whether it wouldn't have. I feel like a lot of that gets overstated a little bit. He's had plenty of time to get settled down and has not become the pitcher I think people thought he was going to be.
I mean, none of them have really become the aces, I think, that people thought. But there's something to be said for, 7 years later, they're all in the league with varying levels of success. For pitchers, it's actually not that terrible of a return rate.
And Kennedy making a life-changing living. I mean, for generations.
Yeah.
I mean, earning a contract with his dependability and kind of a little bit of that makeup, but you can't quantify it, but the makeup, you don't give that money to a guy if the makeup is not good, and it's an off-the-charts good makeup. And here's a guy making his 211th Major League start. I know Tim McMaster's out at the ballpark as well. Tim, you had a chance to settle in with that chatting cage with Ian Kennedy yesterday. He's a guy that I'm guessing was a little bit excited to get back and pitch in this ballpark for the first time, because this is the organization that brought him to the big leagues, drafted him out of USC.
Yeah, Darren, absolutely. Like you said, he kept going back to kind of the Yankees throughout that chatting cage. Talked a little bit about, obviously, what he learned from Andy Pettitte and Mike Mussina when he was young, but then we also asked him about his welcome to the big league moment, and he brought up a moment not when he was on the field or playing. He said he was sitting in the dugout, and he looked to his right, and he saw Johnny Damon sitting there cracking jokes, and he just thought to himself, wow, I'm on the same team with Johnny Damon. This is pretty cool. This is a guy that's done so many things in this game, and I'm a member of the Yankees. So it wasn't even something he did on the field that made him realize he was a big leaguer. It was just kind of picturing himself in that dugout, on that bench, with those Yankee pinstripes on.
Hey, Tim, it's Will. Was there a notion for talk to him about coming to a team, not only signing a big contract, but signing a big contract with a team that just won the World Series?
Sorry, the crowd's a little loud. Do you want to repeat that again, Will?
Sure, just the idea, not only does he sign the big contract, but he's signing a big contract with a team that just won the World Series and is known for its team chemistry. Was there a notion that you talked to him about that at all, about the idea of coming into a new situation when it's already so well established?
Yeah, he absolutely did. He talked about the fact that there was one reason that he picked the Royals, and that was one thing he saw what they did on the field, the kind of team they were, and obviously at this point in his career, he wants to win a World Series. And he looked around the league, teams that were interested in him, and he felt like they were the team that gave him the best chance to get a ring, which is kind of a little ironic considering he did come up with the Yankees, who have all those rings, but he ends up signing as a free agent this offseason with the Royals because he thinks this team can get back to the World Series and go back-to-back.
Tim, thank you. We look forward to hearing back from you in a bit.
No problem, guys.
Tim McMaster will be finding the man on the street interviews as Kennedy loses Carlos Beltran. Beltran, a couple of walks, 2 walks, as a matter of fact. He had 3 all season before those 2 tonight.
Remember, pitch number 1 there, kind of looked like it might have been a strike to me. And you look at the pitch effect zone, sure looks like it was in the zone to me. And, the 3rd and 5th pitch, maybe just a little bit outside. It just kind of goes to
veteran call.
Well, it's a veteran call, but did Sal Perez do enough to help it?
Right.
And so obviously pitch framing has been a huge thing over the last couple of years. And Perez, fantastic reputation behind the plate, durable, strong arm, pitchers love him. Pitch framing, the stats not quite as high as I think his reputation kind of would lead you to believe.
One thing about pitch framing, obviously this has become a major, teams investing in pitch framing in a way that they never have before. On one hand, it seems kind of strange because you're really you're working off umpire inefficiency more than you work on anything else. But it also seems, I saw a study in Fangraphs last year where it seemed to suggest that umpires who are not in fact robots when they call the strike zone are maybe becoming a little bit more aware of this, and you're seeing that effect maybe lessened a little bit.
They're not robots yet.
Yet.
I think you're right. I think we probably reached peak pitch framing.
Mm-hmm.
I think umpires are more aware of it, and I think they're paying attention more. And I don't think that it's going to be as important, but I do think it's always been important. It's only just been recently we've been able to measure it.
It does seem strange. I mean, someone like Perez, certainly, obviously, again, a very good defensive catcher with a great arm, but we tie so much of his value into his defense, and to learn that this fundamental defensive thing that we're just now learning more and more about is actually not something he has a lot of strength.
Yeah, and it's interesting to compare him to McCann. I know McCann's not catching, so he's DHing, but he's the regular Yankee catcher, and you can compare the two of them, and you can really see where in the strike zone they are both, good and bad, for lack of better terms, kind of compared to some of the best catchers in baseball.
I prefer to think Perez is not so much a bad framer as much as he is being fundamentally honest. Listen, if it's a ball, I'm not going to try to deceive you.
Not going to double up Aaron Hicks with that speed, despite that height and that size. Ryan McCann started off the inning striking out. McCann went down on strikes against Ian Kennedy. We stat-casted it for you. Kennedy did the extension of 6.3, the perceived velocity at about the same, and the spin rate at 23.55. Just a rising fastball.
Yeah, strikeout's been a big problem for McCann all year, up 15% last year to about 25% this year. Obviously, all of baseball is striking out more. I know we've said that a lot, but for these two teams, it really has been a big issue.
Quantify that number, 23.65 on a fastball.
It is slightly above average. League average last year was about 2,220, so that's a little bit above average. It probably stayed up just a little bit longer.
That's the perception of almost the rise, correct?
Yeah, you call it a rising fastball, not you specifically, but just people call it a rising fastball.
Right, the perception.
It's less that it rises than it is that it falls slower.
Got it. We're talking about the StatCast darling at first base there, and Aaron Hicks, and the speed, the arm, all the things that he does, and how he can light it up with the throw of 105, correct?
105.5.
105.5.
And that .5 is all the difference.
Well, he didn't just break the record. He broke it by a lot. It was 103.1, his previous record. It's kind of a considerable distance.
You go back and you look at Hicks as Gregorius fouls it off back in 2007. When he was a high school, and those are those numbers there, 105.5. When he was just 16 years old, turning 17, Hicks at a national showcase, threw a ball 97 miles an hour in high school. He ran a 60 at 6.45, and he's a tall, lean guy, so already he was moving the needle, and that probably showcases like that. And he's still somewhat raw. He may finish his career raw, but boy, those measurables with regard to velocity and speed, you can't overlook them.
Also just tells you so much about baseball, too, that a guy that has... Oh, well,
Kennedy hung a breaking ball, and it's crushed to deep right field. Gregorius, a spinning, hanging breaking ball out over the plate, and Didi homers for the third time this season.
I was literally just about to say all these tools and still not hitting that well, and then he hangs one.
I was going to say, do you remember we were talking about the left side of the Yankee infield, how subpar it's been all year, and now you have Chase Headley home run, you have Didi Gregorius home run.
Third home run allowed tonight by Ian Kennedy. He had allowed 3 all year long in his previous 6 starts. And this was a real hovercraft breaking ball out over the plate.
That's a pitch that Didi Gregorius can hit out.
Yes, the spin rate on that was good, and that's fine, but you got to locate too, right? You want that ball to kind of start where it ended and then drop. You don't want it to just drop right into the bread box there like that. And we talked a little bit about how Kennedy has benefited from the improved outfield defense. It doesn't help if you can't let the outfielders get to the ball because it's already in the bleachers.
No, you can't include Vinny from Queens as part of your outfield defense.
Right.
Who catches the ball beyond the right field wall.
That's Gregorius' 25th career homer, and he trotted that one off like he'd hit 500.
It's actually more than I would have thought.
Yeah, right.
His career.
This one well struck, deep right field, but this one playable shy of the track. Headley, who by the way did homer last time up.
This is my opportunity for a 4-homer Headley night, unfortunately.
You missed out.
Still extra innings.
Still extra innings.
So
I'll
you're
wait.
saying there's a chance.
I'll wait.
Yankees 5, Royals 2. A commitment to Max Scherzer, as we saw what Scherzer did recently, heading into a couple of winters ago, and then a commitment very recently to Steven Strasburg. And here's some of the comments and the thoughts, and we'll give our thoughts and comments. But here's Strasburg, a long-term commitment to the Washington Nationals.
This is really a special day for me and for the organization. You know, one of our real cornerstones and a guy that really put us on the map is decided to stay home, and we couldn't be more proud of him and of the city of Washington D.C. and of his teammates for him making that decision.
Just looking back and you know, making my first start of my junior year out there in Compton, California, and to see, you know, all the ups and downs that we've experienced, you know, through the years, and I'm just excited to, you know, go through those ups and downs again for another 7. So I'm really, really happy.
So the career numbers for Steven Strasburg and having a fabulous year, and the key for him is staying out there every 5 days and feeling comfortable on the mound, and you hope that that investment of 7 years and $175 million, the key is to get him out there and to keep him out there, but certainly a commitment, a long-term commitment for the Nationals. Jim Duquette, out at the ballpark, we talked about the fact that you keep in touch with all of these leaders of organizations, and especially Mike Rizzo. When you spoke with Mike about this Steven Strasburg contract and what went into putting it all together, what did he share with you? Jim, when you spoke with Mike Rizzo, I think we might have him connected now, and you talked with Rizzo about this contract with Steven Strasburg. What did he share with you behind the scenes, all that went into putting this deal together?
Well, you know what? This is one of those that came together, guys. It started the negotiation last winter, believe it or not. And it was at Steven Strasburg's request. Usually it comes from the club, you know, but it speaks to a couple of things. First off, how they've handled him and the fact that he's comfortable there in a Nationals uniform. Very rarely do you see Scott Boras represented clients not go to free agency. But this was something that from Strasburg's side he wanted to get done. They did it. They tried to get it done in spring training. It bled into the start of the season, which is not unusual sometimes. And I think they needed kind of a pause before they could get this thing done here again in April. And that's how it ended up happening. And you know, I think from that standpoint, it's interesting. There's been different opinions across the game, whether there's value there or not. You know, if he hasn't had a Cy Young, as you guys know, or a lot of innings pitched on that arm, yet he's the 6th highest paid pitcher in the game. And so that's where a lot of people kind of raised their eyebrows on it. Kind of looked at it this way. He's pitching so well. If he's in that mix for Cy Young this year, which I think he will be, he could very easily be asking for 210, 220, something around a David Price number, and maybe get it, probably get it too, without there being a lot of competition for other pitchers of his ability. So I think this one, as you started to look at both sides and the risk and reward for both sides, it ended up being, I don't know, if you want to say 175 is fair, it's gone well past my price tag where I'm comfortable. I know that for sure.
Jim, it's Will. Obviously, one of the biggest moves with Strasburg, the biggest debated thing, was the idea of the innings limit and him not pitching in that postseason. You talked about how comfortable he felt with the organization. Was it connected to that? Did he feel taken care of in what many people still consider a controversial decision?
Yeah, well, he does say that, in terms of being taken care of. Certainly when it comes to the medical side of things, and even to the point where a little bit probably protective in a lot of ways. And I actually had a chance to talk to his agent, Scott Boras, today about the same thing. He said, this will allow Steven to basically let it all fly. He's a guy that's been mostly 6 innings per start. That I wouldn't be surprised if they let him go a little deeper into games, and that he's willing to do that, obviously, and welcomes that. Obviously, with the price tag comes that money, but there's also interesting kind of strategy in talking to Boras about this. He's very well aware his own client Arrieta is going to be a free agent in 2017. He has Fernandez and Harvey, the free agents at the end of 2018, and that marketplace can all set itself. And then Strasburg could opt out, which was an important part of his clause in 2019 or 2020. So it's kind of interesting to see how if Strasburg has a couple of good years and those guys sign, he could end up going back out on the market.
Hey, Jim, it's Mike. Now that Strasburg's not going to be a free agent this winter, how happy are you not to have to go look for pitching running a team right now? Because there is just nobody out there this winter.
Nobody out there, Mike. It would be tough. And that's where, you guys like Rich Hill and Matt Latos, they're going to be out there, and they're not anywhere near, obviously, Strasburg's ilk. And so, there's a lot of talk among executives I've talked to here recently, general managers in particular, that feel like the trade market's going to be really active for players that you can control beyond this year, beyond being free agents, obviously. So that goes to guys, in San Diego with the 3 starters out there. If Ross comes back healthy, comes to the Tampa Bay team aside, with either Cobb or Odorizzi. And the guy that comes up a lot is Sonny Gray in Oakland. And on the surface, he's not having a good season. It's out to a slow start. It would hurt their market for him, but we know what he's capable of. We know what he's done in the past. I expect him to rebound. A lot of teams that feel like they would have interest in Sonny Gray, and he's already preparing for it to be an expensive asking price for him if they decide to even make him available.
So Will wrote a great piece recently on Tim Lincecum, my favorite pitcher to watch and cover from afar, certainly. What is the very latest? I know where I live, he recently held a showcase, and it's getting kind of hot for him. What's the latest on Tim Lincecum?
Yeah, it is. I think, he had 20 teams out there looking. Primarily, they're all West Coast teams that are going to be, I think, the front runners. And, if you look at it from that side of things, Tim's also looking for a starting position, too. So the Padres have recently said they're out. Seattle recently said they're out. San Francisco has been pretty consistent about wanting him as a relief pitcher. The Angels, I'm hearing, sent 4 different scouts to that workout. They are in the mix. They need starting pitching. And some would say, well, why they're with the Angels? They're struggling. They have a lot of injuries. But it makes sense for me if he was to start there and he had a good first half, or let's say a good month and a half. They could use him as a trade chip as well, to trade him with to some team and get themselves some a prospect or two that they really sorely need in that system. So, keep an eye on Lincecum. I talked to a GM on the East Coast, and he said he would be very surprised if he didn't sign up with a West Coast team here in the next couple of days.
Duke, thank you. We appreciate it.
All right, guys, you got it.
Jim Duquette, an 0-2 breaking ball out over the plate to Eric Hosmer. A mistake, and Hosmer tattooed it to left center field. His 5-2 game. Tim Lincecum.
I gotta tell you, with the market, the idea that 2 of the top free agent starters coming in next year. Imagine if a year ago, if you said 2 of them were going to be Rich Hill and Matt Latos. The idea that those 2 guys, who not only that one was out of baseball, one should have been out of baseball with the way it was going. It's kind of amazing to see those 2 as potential big free agent signings.
I think I'm just going to hibernate all winter. I don't think I can watch a winter pitching trade rumors
of nothing but Rich Hill and Matt Latos. The bidding war for Matt Latos after the year he had is an amazing thought. Rich Hill even more improbable.
So, Mike, we were talking about impressive, hitting it hard the other way. We have the stat cast of the double by Eric Hosmer, hanging breaking ball, and I bet some big numbers here.
Yeah, look at that ball right in the middle. 107, it was 108 miles an hour. He's actually lucky that he didn't get a little more launch angle on that, because that might have been out of the park, and it came pretty close as it was. And look at him motoring around from home to second, even though he didn't actually have to run it hard the entire way.
He's quick from home to first, right?
He is actually, one of the most athletic first basemen, and I think we know he's a very good defender. But it's also on the bases, and he actually set the StatCast era record for the quickest home to first time by a first baseman on opening day against the Mets this year, 3.9 seconds. Last year, we ran home to first times on what we call competitive plays, which is trying to just get to plays where they're actually running hard, where they're not just trying to jog out a lazy fly ball. And he was the first. He was above Brandon Belt last year. He's above Brandon Moss. This is, I think, just individual plays from last year and this year. Look at Hosmer. Will, I don't know how Matt Adams ended up on that list.
Yeah.
I think it must have been the best day of his life.
I think that was the game they gave him the scooter.
Right. Anthony Rizzo, obviously, that makes sense. But, Hosmer for a first baseman, he's a really athletic guy. Like, he can run, and I think that kind of goes to show. As you mentioned, he's still young, and he is improving.
So kind of the inconsistencies continue. A walk of Morales, who was 0 for 2, and better said was 8 for his last 63. And against the shift, a shot into left center field, hit hard on the ground, another well-struck baseball. But again, bad 0-2 pitches and walks, not the shift. I understand he beat the shift, but bad 0-2 pitches and walks are what set that up.
You are 100% right, and yet I can still already read Jordy's.
Of course.
Because you remember, it was Eovaldi a couple weeks ago when he had the no-hitter going. It was a play similar to that, a ground ball through the shift that otherwise probably would have been easy out that broke up that no-hitter, and I think that's where that conversation actually got started. That's going to be pointed to as a reason not to use the shift, but I think we also saw earlier in this game the shift really paid off very well.
Yeah, it's funny how he won't say about, the reason we got that double play that really could have prevented all sorts of trouble in that first inning was because they had the shift on. I really love that play by Castro. I know we'll talk about that again later on, but that's such a tough angle for him to throw that in that first time. But yeah, you're right. Girardi is a kind of a shift convenience person. Whenever it is convenient, the shift is great. When it's not, it's not.
But I mean, it really goes back to, kind of Darren, what you're saying. As we can see here, the Yankees get shifted against more than anybody on the planet, right? And not even by just a little bit, by hundreds and hundreds of times, because that's the way they've built their roster. Yeah. You have McCann, you have Beltran, you have
it's the fence. It's the people. They can't help but big guys that want that fence.
They have built their team in a very specific way, and teams defend that in a very specific way. But going back to Eovaldi here, he's throwing really hard, and we knew he was going to. He's had some okay pitches, but he's left some hangers up there. He's only got 6 swing and misses so far. It hasn't really been as impressive a performance as you would expect from a guy with that skill set, and that's why the Royals are threatening right now.
This is the Eovaldi game. This is what we were saying going in. All the stuff that should work and still not. The fact that he's not getting more swing and misses than that with that kind of stuff is really just kind of, it speaks to the whole problem.
Are we saying that's because of Eovaldi, or is it because the Royals love contact?
Oh no, we're retrofitting everything.
Kirby Yates is warming in the bullpen for the Yankees, a Hawaiian native who began his career as an undrafted free agent in 2009. Yates does not get real good exit velocity against him. He's been hard to square up, so he warms in the Yankees bullpen. Quickly on that Alex Gordon RBI single. He went over 100 on exit velocity, almost 103 miles an hour, 102.92. And a low launch angle of just below 3 degrees.
I know they want to get Eovaldi the win here, but I mean the way this has been turned, this is maybe their second best hitter right now.
That's
in the most important part of the game.
Do you think it's the win? Do you think that's what Girardi's thinking, or do you think he can't have his bullpen stretched out endlessly? They're playing a lot of games in a row.
Yeah, but it's one. I mean, listen, he's not coming out for the 6th. You think he's coming out for the 6th? So we're really talking about one batter. If they can't stretch one batter, then you're a bullpen team.
Sal Perez crushes it to right field to the wall. Up against that wall. The play is made by Beltran.
That'll make you throw your helmet. It is to his credit that he did.
That is inches away from
baby. Look at him put that hat back on as he walks off the field. There he is, walking into our shot, and he was anxious.
Look at Beltran get up. Vintage Beltran.
74-year-old Carlos Beltran saving some runs here. But
that was like Trout. I feel like it looked just like Trout.
Leave Carlos alone. Look at him.
Missed it by that much. Well, nice play by Beltran, but I think we're all in agreement that's the end of the night for Nathan Eovaldi.
Yes, like an almost one pitch 2 hits.
Salvador Perez flying out at 95 miles an hour, 94.76. These are the options in the bullpen, and there's a ton of strikeouts at the top there. Obviously, we won't see them for just a bit. Tyler Olson just added to the roster, and Phil Koch, longtime veteran. Yates with a big arm, and Shreve throws pretty hard as well from the left side.
We should have drawn like a big, giant, blinking, flashing polka dot line between the third name and the fourth name, right? Because you have 3 of the most elite pitchers in baseball, and 5 other names. Most fans I think probably wouldn't know those names. Phil Koch maybe has been around, but it's a really kind of weird and interesting collection. We've been talking about this each time because it used to be Johnny Barbado was on that list, and James Pezos was on that list. And they've kind of come up with this really fascinating collection of arms, but it almost doesn't matter who the rest of those guys are when you have Miller and Betances and Chapman.
Well, I remember the first game we did on this, and we talked about how the Yankees' issue with offense, all they got to do is get to that bullpen with the lead. All they got to do. And the problem with the Yankees is that they're often not going to have the offense, or frankly the starting pitching, to be able to get a lead. So here they are, 5 innings, got a lead. Can you bridge to those 2 guys?
And I think, if you look at Dellin Betances, he hasn't pitched since our last MLB Plus game. Since that Red Sox game last week, he had pitched 3 nights in a row, and he's been off since last Friday. So he should be well rested. He should be available. And you might only need to get 3 or 4 outs out of the other collection of random guys to then get to those big arms.
One more look at that 39-year-old Carlos Beltran playing it wise.
I love that shot. That's such a great shot by our cameraman. Probably wasn't going to go out. That guy in the green
that guy's
shirt
so upset.
was so upset about that. But if it wasn't going to go out, that was going to be extra bases. And that's what Sal Perez is right now. He does not draw walks. His on-base percentage has collapsed every single year, literally of his career, but he had a career-high home runs last year. So he's got the power.
We don't mean to make fun of Carlos Beltran. That's a great hop.
Make fun of no. Future Hall of Famer Carlos Beltran?
That is a discussion that we'd like to have here tonight.
Austin Romine takes outside 1-0 the count for the 27-year-old backup catcher out of Southern California. Brother infielder for the Tigers. Dad played for the Red Sox in the late 80s.
That's Kevin Romine's kid. I remember him.
That's right. That is it. This is a guy who, to take a pitch, first pitch, it has to be in the dirt as it was because he hacks a ton. He swings at about a 40% clip.
He's a decent thrower as a catcher, a good enough framer. Not much of a hitter. He's appeared in parts of 5 seasons for the Yankees, never really gotten a ton of playing time, but his career 219, 260, 302, you kind of figure it's only a matter of time until Gary Sanchez comes up and takes that job. But, for a backup catcher, he gets the job done.
He was, as we mentioned, out of El Toro High School, grew up in Lake Forest, California, if you're familiar with Orange County. Well, that's a great shot from the first base dugout as it sails over the head. Beautiful vista right there as you look at the 3 decks stacked on top of one another. Most of the ballparks in which Austin has played his nearly 700 games as a pro have not had 3 decks. When he's been below the Yankee Stadium level, he's done all right. 273 clips, slugged over 400, but he's caught very well the entire, kind of an organizational guy.
He is going to be part of the international fraternity of backup catchers.
Yeah,
the guy who plays for,
Not a bad place to be. You can talk to Drew Butera about that as well.
Well, he's the perfect guy to it too because he's still a system guy. Those are the best backup catchers because they're cheap.
Right.
So you can pay them a minimum. You can have them until you develop one of those guys every 4 or 5 years.
He's going to be like like a Chris Jimenez who plays for 75 different teams over his career, but it's going to be a career.
Yes. It's a fun job. Nice work if you can get it.
Kennedy got away with a hanging breaking ball there out over the plate. The curveball's looked flat a couple of times tonight, and it's gotten hurt when it has. Romine flied right back in the second inning. Just to remind you about Ian Kennedy, who he was in 2011. He had 33 starts, 200-plus innings, 222. Had a whip of just over 1 and won 21 ball games if you're into counting wins, but he pitched well all year long. Pitched his team into the postseason, Arizona, and they won the Western Division.
he's had 5 straight foul balls here. So a good at bat pass early, but it kind of goes back to what Ian Kennedy has been tonight. He's only got 3 swing and miss all night long. He's throwing good pitches. He's not getting hurt that much right this second, but he has not been able to put guys away. And I think that's his game, is to get fly balls that don't leave the park. And in most other parks, that's great.
Right.
Yankee Stadium, you know, maybe not so much, but I think that's what we've been talking about a lot, is that this outfield defense, as it gets the strikeout there, has really helped him a lot compared to what we saw in San Diego last year. The differences are just massive, right? When you look at batting average between last year and this year, slugging percentage on these balls that go to the outfield. Ian Kennedy has just found himself in an amazing situation compared to what he had last year in San Diego.
You know what he did there? He wasn't, and he isn't getting swing and misses at all, even from Robine. He threw, which he rarely does, to a right-handed hitter, a changeup, and he rarely does that. He just said, well, let me try this.
Yeah, I bet
it was a good pitch.
Seen that.
It was a very good pitch. He almost exclusively throws it to left-handed hitters, and it worked very well. Again, it's that ball that's jammed between the ring finger and the middle finger, a Vulcan change. It's a good pitch for Kennedy, but almost to left-handers only.
It's definitely a good pitch to throw to a guy that's been fouling off the same pitch over.
Yeah, he's feeling good about himself. Want to know the count to Brett Gardner? He's flied to left field twice. Am I allowed to talk Gardner and Gordon again? You want to go down that road one more time?
Absolutely. Let's try it.
What do you think, guys? Can we ask? Can we get into that subject? I've been given the blessing.
Okay. I really, what I want to do is he going to?
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Gordon's in left. We can get a shot at Gordon, maybe. Sorry to do that, guys.
Obviously, Alex Gordon is an elite outfielder, if not the elite left field defensively. But I think Brett Gardner has also been a very good left fielder too. As we said, he played center for a while. He's a pretty good center fielder. But with StatCast, we can kind of show the range that they can cover, between the two of them in left field. And it's really interesting to see just this year what kind of the differences they've been, like the directions they've been able to go. So you can see right here, the yellow dots are just where they've started, just their starting position, so it's kind of the same. But you can see so far this year, Gordon in yellow, he's been really good at going to his, towards center and towards the lines, whereas Brett Gardner's been pretty good at coming in. Right? And, this isn't the hugest sample size in the world. It's just 2016. We hope to get more data as time goes on. But it's really interesting to be able to look at that and say, oh, wow, this is where these guys have different skills. This kind of helps me know where I should position them, depending on what kind of hitter is up, what kind of pitcher I have. That's maybe where I would move them in or out or left or right. And it's just a really interesting way to be able to compare two very good left fielders.
Is there a notion about playing left field? They always say about young players that if you don't have a ton of range and you don't have a great arm, left field is where they put them in a lot of ways. Is there a sense in the numbers and in the way you look at that left field, there are fewer, that you can hide a guy out there, or is left field kind of reveal itself to be just as important?
Less so. I think you're absolutely right. Years ago, right? That's where you put, if you didn't have the DH or a first base slot open, that's where you'd put the guy in left. That's where Manny Ramirez, right? That's where Manny Ramirez,
right.
Because he didn't have the arm for right, he didn't have the speed for center. But the truth is, there aren't really many starting left fielders anymore. I think these are two of the very few. Left field has become a platoon position. Compared to center field and right field, there's about half or maybe 2/3 as many starting left fielders who play every day in baseball. It's really interesting to see the way the game has changed.
The idea that you could try to put Hanley Ramirez out there, I think, speaks volumes about.
And he has actually become a pretty decent first baseman.
He has.
That did not work out. We saw him last week a couple times, and not so much on left field.
Wade Davis, obviously a big part of this Royals team. Cy Young votes, MVP votes last year. This year, he is 8 of 8 in saves without giving up an earned run. That's right, a 0.00. It is May. He has not given up an earned run. Before the game, our own Fernando Perez, who covered these Royals, had a conversation and they had a chance to catch up with Wade Davis.
Right now, you guys are basically looking up to a new team right now. Obviously, things are a little bit different for you guys, obviously, as the returning World Series champions. How do you sort of just stay balanced, knowing that it's a long season, et cetera?
Having been there, for sure, helps. And just kind of keeping that same idea in our head. A couple of years ago when we were under 500 at the All-Star break and came back and made the playoffs, I think is knowing that you can overcome things like that and seeing teams do it in the past, I think is a huge deal. And I think will just be comfortable with that kind of attitude no matter what. We've had some struggles. Guys have been coming out and playing us pretty tough, especially on the opposing pitching side. It's been a grind, so it's all good for us. So I think it's good to have people come out and play their best game against you, because ultimately I think it'll make you a better team.
What's dominating stuff, but it's really about the spin rate on that cutter. You see these two elite relievers at the top of that list in Jansen and Davis.
Anytime you have those two guys on the top of literally any list at all, you know something good is happening, right? But that's a cutter. A cutter is supposed to move, and then the high spin, it's really about the direction the spin is going. And so you can see that these things that look like fastballs, they move kind of at the last second, and hitters really got no chance. Two of the best relievers of baseball right there.
Has that changed any this year? How is Davis? There's been some notion that Davis is down a little bit.
Velocity is down.
Velocity, the spin rate's
kind of consistent, like 2 miles an hour across the board. But as we just heard, he's still been getting people out. It hasn't hurt him yet, but I think it's something to worry about.
Davis jumps ahead a ton this year. 0-2 counts a third of the time. You're coming out of the pen, you're ahead of a third of the hitters. 0-2. Fernando had that great conversation with Wade before the game, and Fernando, you've known him for a long, long time. He has evolved certainly as a guy who is just so much more comfortable in the bullpen. The numbers are daunting. Just expand a little bit on the man Wade Davis, because you do know him pretty well.
Wade Davis, one of my favorite humans. I actually interviewed Wade for about 2 hours earlier this year for an article that I wrote over at Vice Sports, and it was basically about his evolution. I mean, Wade, when I played with him, he was a starting pitcher. I remember when he showed up, he was a little bit younger than me, and I faced him a number of times in spring training. And I remember when he first came up to AA, and he was just mowing guys down. I was standing in center field with really just not much to do. He threw that, really, really good sinker that he was working on, really good curveball. And I spoke to RJ Harrison, the Rays scouting director, and they said that, Wade's thing is he was just coming at you. And then he had a little bit of trouble in the major leagues as a starter with Tampa Bay when he started to change his mentality as a starter. He then decided, I think maybe what I need to do is pitch a little bit. And that's not how Wade does things. You have to really stay with your strength. So he struggled a little bit, and they tried him a little bit in the bullpen, and he ended up going in that trade. So it was kind of, my initial idea was thinking that maybe it was the change to the bullpen that made all the difference. And when I talked to Wade, he actually had a really interesting thing that I didn't know. He basically started taking his fitness very, very seriously at that point. It made sense. When I knew Wade, when I played with him AA, AAA, he was one of those guys who's just a baseball player, not so much interested in the weights. There's a look to Chipper Jones, right? Not busting out of the uniform. This is a guy that's a pure hitter. He's got such a nice swing and knows his swing so well. He's able to generate power, but he's not a hulking guy, not a gym rat. And so Wade started taking his fitness very, very well. I believe his trainer's name is Nayan Olidapo. I believe that's his name. And started working. Basically, they realized that his movement was terrible. So once they started to address all of those places that he moved badly in, they were able to add a lot of strength. So essentially, the end result is that he possibly could have been a great starter anyway. It wasn't necessarily the transition to the bullpen that created possibly the best pitcher on the planet.
Kirby Yates is in for the New York Yankees. He's in for the 13th time this year with a 2.38 ERA, and Dylan Betances is warming in the bullpen. I know Will has a question for you, Fernando.
Yeah, I remember talking to you once. You talked about how you faced Matt Moore, and it felt like he was spiking the ball straight into the ground. I really thought it was a very evocative way to describe it. Have you batted against Wade Davis? Have you actually faced him in a game environment? And what's it like maybe before and after?
I haven't faced Wade as a closer. I've only faced him as a starter, and again, that was Wade Davis, who was kind of fit like a cyclist. He ran a lot, but weights, not so interested in. So I faced that Wade Davis, and he had just a bunch of stuff. But again, he was coming at you. And that year that he struggled as a starter, he was thinking oh, maybe I need to change my style here in the big leagues. The guys, that metaphor of seeing a 96 plus fastball, it probably applies to Nathan Eovaldi over there. This guy's throwing 99 miles per hour in the first inning. Now, even your guys that end up throwing 98, they don't usually do that. The older guys, he's young and he has that classic big right-handed pitcher thing that they throw a fastball, they throw it 99, they want the ball back, and they're just like, can't wait to get back to the mound and do it all over again. And so visually what happens is if they're reaching to their target, it appears as though the ball is going to spike and then it carries on to the plate. It's just it's an optical illusion. It's really, really strange.
Fernando, I know that Will has one more, a little bit more serious question for you.
Say the name of that trainer again.
So this is from memory, but if you really want to know, go to Vice Sports and read my article. But
we like you saying
Ian Oladapo.
Oh,
I'm not going to try to say that.
I believe, and I hope that I am correct.
If it's anything even close to that, it's still awesome.
Really impressive.
Yeah, he's he really Wade said that he really helped him as soon as he just took it seriously, and also just every aspect of it. And that's a thing that's really common with baseball players and especially young guys. You know, I mean, when they started to do all of the, you know, the new food, like better food in the clubhouses, you know. There's one part of you saying, why does a baseball clubhouse need Dr. Pepper? A baseball clubhouse does not need any Dr. Pepper. And then, you know, you've got some guys that are just like, this is just what I do. It has nothing to do with how I perform. And obviously science says, well, it probably does. And maybe you should actually cut that out.
Thank you, Fernando. We appreciate it. Talk to you again in a bit. Just resetting the New York Yankees getting ready to go to bat with a 5-3 lead. Good question by you. Ian
this
Kennedy
set needs Dr. Pepper. I don't know about a clubhouse, but this set.
Right. Well, yeah, we're not performing at that level, certainly. Ian Kennedy in this game has gone 5 innings, and they're pretty darn workmanlike. He's given up 3 homers. He's given up 3 all year long. He has given up 5 runs overall. Eovaldi went to 5 innings, gave up 8 hits, 3 runs, a couple of big 2-strike hits that certainly did some damage, but not enough damage. But Kennedy still back out there working. Ian Kennedy working now with 76 pitches, so away he goes to mark the share of 3 Yankee home runs. Castro in the first inning, a 2-run homer by Headley, his first extra base hit of the year, and then a 2-run homer by Didi Gregorius on a bad hanging curveball from Kennedy in the 4th inning. That's the story of this one.
Yeah, I think we have to just take a real quick second and recognize Kirby Yates. I think we were talking to Fernando.
Sure.
We didn't get the only reason I'm going to bring up Kirby Yates is because if the Yankees hang on to this lead and win this game, nobody's ever going to remember Kirby Yates, right? He's going to be the least important story of the game. But he got through that inning, 10 pitches in the inning there, really easy, 1, 2, 3, and now he has set up the remaining 3 innings for the 3-headed monster of Betances and Miller and Chapman, none of whom pitched last night. I think that's the kind of inning they've had a hard time getting from the back of the bullpen from the starting pitchers. And so he could have easily given up that lead right there or caused them to have to bring in Miller in the 6th inning or whatever. So I think that's really important to kind of recognize these middle relievers. That's a very important inning right there.
Keep doing that. He's going to get that 6th inning a lot.
Yes.
The last play, Jared Dyson flying out to center field just a moment ago. Exit velocity of below 80, 79.28 miles an hour. And that kind of sums up Kirby Yates, right? I mean, very quietly, he doesn't get squared up very much. He's not the big name, but he doesn't get squared up much at all.
He's not the big name. If he keeps pitching like that, people will stop asking if he's actually a real name. And if it's not just someone that they made up, you know, from like the auto-generated video game from the future. Really, you know, an impressive inning for him, like you said. And you're right. He did not get squared up, and you don't have to miss bats if you can do that. Prevent guys from getting hard contact on you. 3 balls in the air, none of which really went that far. So great inning for him right there.
Yates 86.26 average this year. Exit velocity, that's the best amongst his peers on the Yankee staff as Teixeira goes down. Chases an ugly high fastball out of the zone.
It's funny, I feel like Kennedy has pitched better than Eovaldi today. Like, other than those mistakes, it really does feel.
The, I don't know, scoreboard.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. Like, you know, he's still, he's been more efficient.
Right.
He's had more, like,
I don't think it's crazy at all for you to say that.
Right.
Because I completely understand where you're coming from. One has looked more impressive than the other. It just that's not really what's been reflected on the scoreboard.
Right.
I guess that's the way baseball works sometimes.
I guess so. The scoreboard is the most dangerous stat.
Brian McCann has struck out a couple of times. Kennedy's starting to work way up above the letters now, hoping to get some chase. Kennedy at 78 with the extension of 6 feet there, and the strikeout of McCann. You see the perceived velocity on that breaking ball.
I mean, this is the thing. This is the Kennedy game. Those balls are often staying in other stadiums, and we'd be talking about how great he's looking today. But unfortunately, he's in a place where some of those balls that are out in other places are home runs here.
And I wouldn't say any of those balls were absolutely destroyed.
No.
A Headley one especially. You know, what we say, 98 miles an hour, and you know, it still counts, but it's not like he's giving up 500-foot moonshots here.
And there's the fourth hit, which is also not a line shot.
It's poorly placed, not for the Yankees' perspective, obviously, but for Kennedy.
It's funny, McCann did a nice job. He had been struck out a couple of times, and you see how much they have to deal with the shift. I mean, McCann and Teixeira always having to deal with that shift, and it beats them a lot.
Yeah, and this is just the way the team is set up. I mean, you've got these slower guys who bat from the left side. They always just hit into the shift there. It's just the way they are. There's not much they can really do about it, unless you get a pitch low into the outside. That's probably Brian McCann's favorite thing in the world right now. It's pretty hard to pull that pitch. And so part of me wonders, when you're shifting, should there be more of a collaboration between the defense and the pitcher to not pitch him in such a way? Because we saw this, I think, last week when we had David Ortiz, right? And the Yankees, whoever was pitching at the time, Pineda, I think, went low and away, and he was able to put it to the left field for a hit.
Yeah, because Ortiz would just as soon, that's not a ball he necessarily wants to hit unless he's got that kind of shift.
I don't let it get too far with what McCann did. Just because he had been beaten by that same curveball in his last at bat, he went out and, as you said, put an ugly swing on a really good pitch, and so he deserves some credit for that. Because Kennedy did not make a bad pitch. The pitch was shoe top high outside.
I mean, when we look at those home runs later, I would be very curious to see how many of those really are home runs at Kauffman Stadium.
What do you think, Didi's maybe?
Didi's is probably.
And you know what, Kennedy? I think Kennedy would tell you that wasn't a bad pitch.
Right.
I deserve to have that hit out.
But
it was like that one.
Right.
Yeah. Headley's no way that goes out in Kansas City. Castro's
close.
Maybe borderline.
I mean, that's maybe a double in Kansas City.
Probably wouldn't be caught.
Right. But that's the thing is, that's the way Kennedy pitches, and in a stadium like this, all of a sudden, what would be a 3-1 lead is a 5-3 deficit.
Well, that's a good two-strike pitch. Credit to the 39-year-old for fighting it off right there into his knuckles.
Beltran says he wants to play. He's not done. This is not his last year. This is last year under contract, I believe. But he's got to end up on some team that needs a DH. Does he go back to Kansas City, where it all started?
It makes a certain amount of sense. It makes
poetic anyway.
And the question is, can he have a couple more seasons? If he can stick a couple more out, will it convince people that are on the fence about him to make him a Hall of Famer?
So I have a personal interest in this. All right, I have a vested interest in this. I get a Hall of Fame vote in 9.5 years, right? So there's a 5-year waiting period. Say he plays a couple years, he probably would not be a first ballot Hall of Famer, most likely. That means I may actually get the chance to vote or not vote for Carlos Beltran in 9 or 10 years.
This is very exciting. So can I now? I know we're a long way away from your vote.
Yeah.
But have you? Can you say? Will it be a 9.5-year thought process until that happens, or are you leaning in that direction now?
I think most guys I haven't put a ton of thought when they're still playing, because obviously there's a long way. They still compile up stats. But I have to think Beltran, yes, and I think he's going to be an interesting test case because some of the stuff he's done, very few players have ever done. It's either guys who are in the Hall of Fame or aren't for non-baseball related reasons. And you look at what he's done. He's got a Rookie of the Year. He's got some really incredible postseason heroics. But as I think you alluded to before, anybody from New York is going to think of Adam Wainwright and that 2006 NLCS, which is unbelievably unfair. Because at the time, Adam Wainwright was some kid. Turned out he's one of the elite
Adam Wainwright
of the generation.
Right. And yeah, that is the notion of that too, particularly because he's such a good postseason hitter. It's such a big part of who he is. And one pitch, get rid of all that.
One pitch in this game turned into our must-see moment. It was early in this game. You're right, by the way, Will, in your thoughts. It was in the first inning. It was Starlin Castro. Drove it out to right. It is tonight's must-see moment.
Now here is Castro with 1 out and no one on. The 1-1 hit high in the air to deep right center. That ball is high. It is far. It is gone. He hit it about 5 rows back over the auxiliary scoreboard in right center. Starlight. Star bright. Starlin just hit one with all his might. Starlin is darlin', and the Yankees take a 1-0 lead.
He bangs one to deep right. And back goes Dyson to the wall and gone. Starlin Castro. So home run number 4 surrendered by Ian Kennedy to the opposite field. And it is 1-0 New York.
It's actually my 40th home run that I've snagged during games. Had some highlights over the years. Last summer I got A-Rod's 3,000th hit. I also caught Mike Trout's first career home run in 2011. I caught a Beltran homer at Shea Stadium, which was the last home run that the Mets ever hit there. I caught a Jeter home run, Barry Bonds number 724. I've had 3 different games when I've gotten 2, so I'm hoping to catch another one tonight. You know, over 8,000 balls, including batting practice. I give away a lot to kids. I do this to raise money for a children's baseball charity, so yeah, that's what's up. I just try to make sure I have a little room to maneuver, which at Yankee Stadium is tough because it's always so crowded here, and there's no cross aisle, there's no standing room out here in right field, so if I just have a few empty seats on either side, that's pretty much my limitation, and I made the most of it tonight. It feels pretty good.
Zach on the spot again, making the play out there. Hundreds he has caught. I know both you guys. He's a favorite of yours.
I like my job, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm impressed by the rattling off of his own stats. I will give him that. That is something that if a player did, we would say that he was a me first player. But we're not saying that about Zach.
No.
Congratulations for the excitement of going out to the ballpark and catching an 8,000th ball.
I don't believe everything you're saying, guys, but we'll move along.
Legitimately
I'm
happy.
excited about Dylan Betances.
Dylan
I haven't seen him
Betances.
since last Friday.
Dylan has not worked. He goes to work again. We won't forget about you, Kirby Yates. You did really good work with a clean inning, but Betances takes over with a 2.57 ERA on the season. As you said, he has had a little bit of time off. As the New York native goes to work for the 16th time this year. 14 innings of work, 27 strikeouts, 3 walks.
I think the walk rate being cut in half, his walk percentage is down, is really interesting. Strikeouts are way up, but this
What about
is the
that?
most interesting. He's incredibly difficult to hit, so you have to start with that. But when you do hit him, he's actually getting hit a little bit harder. He gave up home runs, I want to say 3 straight times in a row. We saw David Ortiz.
We saw in our first game.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So, you know, I read an interesting theory today on by our friend Mike Exisa on Rivera Blues that the curveball and the fastball, he's no longer releasing them from the exact same place, and maybe that tips it off a little bit. That's easier. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but it's an interesting theory because he's still missing a lot of bats. It just when he's not, because he get hit.
2 really good things happen there.
Yes.
First of all, a shortstop that's playing second base and has made 2 great plays tonight, starting a double play early, and a first baseman that knows exactly when to commit to a baseball and stay on the bag. 2 really good things happen with that play. That's a lot of range, too. Boy, that's a lot of range.
Well, isn't that one of the reasons why you see so few players that are brought up as second baseman? You're almost wary of someone when they're brought up as a second baseman because you have someone, if you can get someone that can play short and then he can make a play like that at second base because he's shortstop.
Yeah, and that's important. We've talked a lot about how Castro is the only Yankee that's actually hitting. His defense has been really impressive tonight.
And it takes some of the pressure off him that I think ground on him a little bit in Chicago. I think the shortstop position, there was a lot on him. He made most of the errors he made were not physical errors. Like they were mistakes.
Yes.
And I think having him at second base, I think takes a little bit of that pressure off him, and I think we're seeing results.
And it's a good thing, too, because they gave up a good player for him. Adam Warren is a good pitcher, and they're getting results for it. Yeah, look at it. He's almost entirely turned around to the plate by the time he gets that ball, running into the outfield. And then, you know, to be able to turn around and put that ball on target, really nice play.
There's something strange because even giving up Warren, that's such a hit really for Cashman to make that deal. But it's funny to think that the Yankees are the team that now doesn't sign free agents but will trade for players that are on the bottom tier with the current teams that they're at. Like the castoffs from other teams that are ready to move on. Yeah. They're now the Yankee standouts.
The new Yankees are very weird.
It is unusual.
Good first step. Top speed. You think of how quickly he got to 15.57 miles an hour, not running on dirt, not running bases, and running at an awkward angle. So just a lot went into that play.
He did actually have a slightly negative first step, and in this case, negative.
Explain that.
Yeah, negative doesn't mean bad, right? Every time you see a negative, you think, oh, that must be bad. It just means that he got moving before the ball made contact with the bat. Right, so he anticipated where it might go. Fortunately for him, the right direction, because that could also end in disaster. But it's interesting to see that you can actually get moving before the ball is there, and that might have helped him make that play.
Is it almost like a soccer keeper on a penalty kick? The idea that you're anticipating.
That's exactly right. I think you're quantifying instincts. I really think you're able to, not always scientifically, but I think you're quantifying instincts.
Yeah, that's probably an extreme example, because you're right. Like they kind of go one way and the ball could literally go the other, and you don't see that too much in baseball, but I think you're on the right track there. That's absolutely right.
And so again, tell us that number, that first step, going back to that Castro play.
It was very minimal. It was negative .01, so it's basically at the ball, but he kind of sort of knew, maybe he could see the signs. I've heard some players talk to me about that. You can see the signs, you have an idea of where the ball's going to go.
You know, it's an outside pitch and he's going to
exactly right. And so you can't say for sure that's what happened there, but that would certainly make sense. If he knew that's where the ball was likely to go, if he knows that's where the hitter is likely to hit it, you're going to want to be leaning in that direction, and you kind of take the chance that you're going to be right, and you don't get caught leaning the wrong way.
Or he's clairvoyant. Let's not keep that.
I thought that was a given.
Of course, obviously. We have to keep all matters of phenomena in mind for these conversations.
2-1 the count on Hosmer. Eric has singled, he has doubled, he has grounded out to first. We told you early in the game, he's reached safely now in 32 of the 34 games in which he has played this year.
He's really been a star, and I want to repeat one stat I know I mentioned earlier on the exit velocity. Last year, amongst only first basemen, he had the 20th best exit velocity. This year, the 3rd. He's really hitting the ball hard because he's really done a great job of laying off pitches outside the zone. You can see it here, the 3-1 count. He's done a good job of that. So that's kind of the progression of a guy who's probably younger than I think people think he is.
Well, I mean, he's becoming the player that they anticipated him.
Yeah, and he's never going to be a 40 home run guy, partially because he plays for the Royals, and by definition, there will never be a 40 home run guy. But he doesn't have to be that traditional slugger because, as we mentioned, he's so athletic in other ways around the game. He provides value in a lot of different ways.
A three-time Gold Glover, 13, 14, 15. Unique family background, son of a firefighter. His mom is a native of Cuba. Dad played baseball at Iowa, so just a very unique family. Dad Mike, Mom Elena, and that time just the wickedness that is Dylan Patanzas puts him away.
Yeah, when you're throwing 99 miles an hour and you come out and you drop an 87-mile-an-hour knuckle curve with high spin, and it really is, it's the knuckle curve that is his out pitch. It's not the heater, which kind of goes against what you think, because how could you even manage to touch that after you're geared up for 99?
It's very unfair.
We hope you are following us and joining us in the conversation on Twitter, #MLB+. I know Ashley Chavez, our general manager, our social media general manager, she's been tracking our conversations and what folks have to say to Ashley and to us, and so we bring her in. Ashley, what are you finding out?
Well, it's 7th inning stretch tweet time, and I have some nice tweets, I have some punny tweets, and I have some questions, so let's get to it. The first one is from Matt B. He says, big fan of MLB+. Well, thank you so much. Stay tuned. Keep watching and tell all your friends. Next, we have Do the Right Thing, which is awesome. Says, MLB TV has StatCast enhanced broadcast of the Yankees-Royals game. #NerdAlert. #high praise, I think. So, thank you.
That is a terrific name.
Isn't that great? I love it. And next from Brendan, we have a question for the MLB+ guys. How much stock do you put into BABIP when evaluating players' luck/lack of luck at the plate?
Okay, well, I guess that one's on me. So BABIP, batting average on balls in play, right? And it basically just means what's the average when you make contact. So ignore strikeouts, right? And it can mean, if you have a high BABIP, it can mean a couple of things. It can mean you're getting very, very lucky because you're hitting balls where they ain't, as the classic line goes. It could mean you're just hitting balls really, really hard. Or it could just mean you're very, very fast. You know, so a guy like D. Gordon will have a high BABIP. And it could be a combination of any of those things. And so as to the question, how much stock do I put in it, I'm going to say more now that we can put StatCast to it. Because then we'll know how hard the ball is being hit. Right? Before it was just, well, it could be lucky. He could be crushing the ball. We don't really know which. Now we're going to be able to say, well, he is actually crushing the ball. Or maybe he is just luckier on those.
Is it possible that it's almost less, though? Because now we understand the number a little bit more. Like before, we're guessing. Like that number could be this.
Yes.
Or it could be this. Now you can actually back it up and be like, okay, this is a sustainable BABIP. This is who he is. And this is actually.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, you've done it with Hosmer. You told us how he's hitting the ball harder. His BABIP is way up. I mean, it's been up for several years, but it's almost 360 this year. But you've done it. You've said he's hitting it harder than he ever has. So he may be a little lucky, but he's creating his own luck. Is that what I'm hearing?
People still ask me sometimes, why does exit velocity matter? And I say, well, if you hit the ball over 100 miles an hour, Major League Baseball as a whole this year is hitting .611, which is an insane batting average. So yes, hitting the ball hard
makes a difference.
Very, very, very good.
Confirming my long-held suspicion.
Thank you, Ashley. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Ashley.
Good stuff. She's already back in the control room.
Do the right thing.
I
is
like that. Hashtag nerd alert.
I love it.
I knew they'd have a good question for you because that's a question I ask. You don't want to get lazy and overusing that stat. I mean, it's not that foundational of a stat. It's not that deep. But I think it's fair, as you say, to put StatCast with it. You just backed it up with the Hosmer situation. Kennedy's still out there, by the way, guys.
He's been, as Will said, the stat line is not going to reflect this. It's going to look like he had a poor evening. But he's actually been kind of, I don't know, impressive is not the right word, but, solid.
He's had a Kennedy game. He's pitched generally pretty well. He's given up some fly balls. It's just, unfortunately for him, he's pitching Yankee Stadium when those fly balls tend to go out.
I guess it is. It's just the home runs. He hasn't had a ton of guys on base. He hasn't been walking the ballpark. He's had those fly balls that, unfortunately for him, landed in the wrong spot of the wrong ballpark.
And the idea that Eovaldi has a chance to get the win in this in Kennedy.
What's a win? A pitcher win?
Yeah.
What is that?
I thought we killed it.
I don't understand. What does that mean?
We killed it. Forgot. Killed it.
No analyzation goes into this thought. He's just kind of pitching like a grown-up tonight. You know, he really, I mean, we see a lot of pitchers. We worry about their inconsistency and we worry about who they are. He's pitching like a guy who's been doing it for quite a while, and who knows, and in certain ballparks, as a fly ball pitcher, I've been helped this year. He's given up 3 homers. He may go back and tell us, I've given up 3. I probably should have given up 6 throughout this year. I gave up 2. Probably I shouldn't have it all even. He's pitching like a grown-up.
And watching him tonight and talking about the fly balls in the ballpark, it makes me wonder more than ever, and Darren, you can speak to this, how did he have such a great season in Arizona? I mean, that is not a pitcher's ballpark.
Yeah, there was some good
I have
fortune.
No idea.
I'll tell you one part of it, The homers, obviously, you make a great point. I didn't write down the homers that he gave up, but in 2 seconds we could figure it out. He had a really good outfield that year with Parra and Young and Upton. And as raw as Upton is and will retire raw, those 3 together ran down a ton of baseballs. A ton of baseballs, you bet.
Yeah, I think people forget, especially now that Chris Young is aged in the backup. He used to be a really good outfielder.
Oh, no, you're exactly right. A very, very good outfielder. Ian Kennedy that year, guys, and then, he's out there, so it's not that far off the beaten path. Ian Kennedy somehow, pitching half his games in Chase Field, gave up 19 home runs that year. Only 19 home runs. That's a shockingly low total.
That's amazing.
That's how you have a good year?
In 222 innings. There's that changeup. He goes back to it there, and it's a good pitch. One of the balls that was hit out tonight, this gentleman hit it. And Ian Kennedy will tell you, I didn't make a good pitch at all. A spinning, hanging, just out over the plate, breaking ball for Gregorius, his 3rd homer of the year.
That is not a pitch that would not be out in a lot of other stadiums. That's as good of a ball.
That was 15 rows deep, wasn't it? Deep into the
And as you said, credit to Gregorius. Like, he got a mistake and he took advantage of it. I mean, that's what you have to do. So now let's assume that, the Yankees are going to keep with their high-end relievers for the remainder of the game. How do you even face that as the Royals lineup? Like, you're down, and you've got, maybe, I don't know, Potenza stays in, maybe you've got Miller coming in, and then Chapman. What do you even do about that?
Well, you do what the Royals, everyone's had to do when they faced the Royals the last 2 postseason. You lose. That's exactly what you do.
Nothing. That's what you do.
Guys, let's look back at Headley earlier tonight. We documented and ad nauseum that he had no extra base hits. We told you all the pitchers that had extra base hits. But Chase Headley got one out of here, an exit velocity below 100 miles an hour. He took advantage of the ballpark. The launch angle, you see it, 27.3, and we StatCast it from Ian Kennedy's hands.
Yeah, 356 feet.
So I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know if you just saw me typing over here. I've asked our data guys, I want to know what percentage of home runs are shorter than that. Yeah. I guess is like 3%. There can't be many. I'm assuming a couple off the pesky pole or what have you, like that's probably pretty short, but I'm really interested to see, what that's going to be. This is fun. I just love everything about this.
Oh, that's just...
Come on, this is great. Okay, but think about this. It wasn't won before like an hour.
Exactly. Headley shooting his way up the board.
I love Bartolo Colon on that. I know Syndergaard did what he did last night. Bartolo Colon on that list makes me so happy.
I mean, if Headley hits that ball 356 feet to center field, the announcer's voice doesn't even raise.
No.
Like, there's nothing at all.
I might not even be warning track.
Right.
But because he placed it perfectly, he is off the schneid, as they say.
In the one stadium to hit that perfect.
He's now on a pace of 1 extra base hit every 6 months or so. Watch him do another one right now.
To be fair, though, as he draws a walk, that probably would have been his first extra base hit in any
Yes,
ballpark,
that's
right?
correct.
Probably.
We'll go with that. I do know this. He's had a decent series. He's walked now a couple of times. He's got 4 hits in this series. So maybe, just maybe, things are, as you said, on the upswing, Will.
We did it.
You're taking credit for it.
Not me personally. I just think us, this table, and the positive energy.
So you're lumping me in with taking credit for it is what you're doing. That's
hey, I'm just but one man.
It's very creatively done. Kennedy with the walk, and Austin Romine was due up, and he will hit. You have your catcher DHing. Your backup catcher plays the game.
I have an answer already.
All right.
How many home runs are shorter?
I'm going to say percentage or how many individual?
I can do both, but I'm going to go with percentage.
Okay.
I said 3% are shorter than Chase Utley's 356. 5%.
5%. That's actually higher than I would have thought.
But really, that goes to show, if you're going to hit a ball 356 feet, you had best put it in the right spot of the right park if you want a home run, and he did exactly that. And I think this might be it for Kennedy.
Might be all for Mr. Kennedy.
You know, Austin Romine has a base hit. It's been a nice run for him. He has 6 hits in his last 13 at-bats. And when he starts, he gets hits. And that's the nice thing. When you sporadically play, it's nice when you're getting hits. Ian Kennedy gives the ball to Ned Yost. And he is done for this one. The number 6 1/3. He's got a couple of runners he's responsible for. 5 hits, 5 runs all earned, 3 homers, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. So Ian Kennedy is done. It's time for MLB Plus Fastcast. Let's take a look around the rest of baseball, what's going on, and we'll start in Baltimore. And in Baltimore, where the Tigers are already leading 1-0, top of the 4th inning, Jared Saltalamacchia getting Ubaldo Jimenez, his 7th home run. That's right. Salty's got 7 home runs. That puts the Tigers up 3-0. They're now up 5-1, trying to return to their winning ways. Boy, it's been a tough go lately for the Tigers. Houston at Boston. Scoreless bottom of the 1st. Xander Bogaerts. Dallas Keuchel deep for his 3rd home run of the year. Sox up 2-0. Now 3-1 Sox, bottom of the 3rd. And Hanley Ramirez, after the trot around the diamond, gets an opportunity. And Hanley, the other way, fights it off. An RBI double to right field. Big Poppy come on down. A 4-1 lead, and the Sox are piling on right now. They're having fun in Fenway, the most dangerous offense. They lead at 8-1. Top of the 4th. Phil's leading 1-0. Freddie Galvis taking Aaron Blair, former Diamondback, deep for his 4th home run of the season. The Phils lead at 3-0. And at the Ted in the final year at Turner Field, they're up 4-0 over the Atlanta Braves. MLB Plus Fastcast as we take a look at what's going on here. It's 5-3, the Yankees on top. And a pitching change is made. Ian Kennedy done, as we told you. Royals making some moves. And the Yankees both making some moves as some roster shifting. Chin-Ming Wong takes the rock. And the right-hander, the veteran.
Where's Chen-Min Wang? I don't think I would have believed that if someone said Phil Koch won't be the most random ex-Yankee pitcher in this game. By the way, Ian Kennedy was felled, by the way, in an 80-mile-an-hour exit velocity. Tough luck for him. Remember Chen-Min Wang when he was with the Yankees? I know everybody, 19 wins, fine, whatever. But he got so lucky with some of those teams because they had a good offense. He struck out nobody, but he got a ton of ground balls. And then he basically just fell off the face of the earth. And I believe he was working with the guy who brought back Scott Kazmir in terms of trying to regain his velocity, and he's back.
Yeah, well, he's I think, again, I know we don't talk about batting averages here, but they're hitting 317 off him this year in 8 games. So he's not fooling a lot of people.
No, he's a ground ball guy. Throws a sinker 70% of the time. If he gets ground balls, great. If not, it ends poorly.
And this is his spot. This is exactly what you want to feel about ground ball guy.
Looking to get a couple of outs. The Taiwanese native, 36 years old, Tainan City in Taiwan. And when he was a Yankee for those 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, for those 4+ years, he rolled up 99 double plays, and his ground ball rate was 2.3-1. So you're right, that's exactly what he was. Pitched to an ERA of over 4 as a New York Yankee. Even did some time on his way back pitching for the South Maryland Blue Crabs of the Atlantic League. He did some independent league baseball to find his way back.
Who among us hasn't pitched for the South Maryland Blue Claws?
I would have loved to. I would have loved to. I'd still do it if they're out there.
Maybe on the Sonoma Stompers in the next couple of years. Little Ben Lindbergh shout.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Brett Gardner is 0 for 3. All the outs are in the air for Brett. He's 2 for 13 with 3 walks in this series.
not a ton of speed on the bases right now, right? You got Chase Headley, you have Austin Romine. This is exactly the place you need a ground ball to get that double play.
Oh, how far does it kick away? The base runners do not move up.
That's fear of Perez's arm.
Sal all smiles there. He wants to keep that double play alive. He's a charismatic man, isn't he?
He is beloved. Of all those guys, he's they love Hosmer and they love Gordon, but it's Perez.
I've never, maybe not never, but I can't remember a time where a team has really torn up an extension they had signed to give someone that they didn't have to give him a new deal, and they did just because they felt he was being underpaid. Granted, that was one of the most team-friendly
unbelievably.
Was it 5 years and $7 million total? That's insane.
He just turned 26. Just 2 days ago, turned 26 years old.
But considering as many games as he catches, he may be 35 for catcher years.
But he's really interesting. Some of the stuff we can track. He is one of the best at pop time. All right, so pop time is a measure of how quickly the catcher gets the ball to the second baseman or the shortstop. The pops are the pop to his glove and the pop to the second baseman's glove. So we actually have him as being tied for third best this year, which is pretty good, behind Maldonado and JT Realmuto, which is important, I think, because if you look at his on-base percentage since his first year of 2011, it has dropped literally every single year. From 361, I'm not going to read them all, but all the way down to 271 this year. And you can see the pop time here. Some of those guys are kind of like the known backup catchers of the world, but Perez is really good. Young Gomes is really good.
That's the average, huh?
That's the average.
That's spectacular.
That is very, very good. The average this year is 1.99.
Right.
So let's say 2 seconds, and he is above average. And it may not sound like tenths of a second really matter that much, but they absolutely do, right? You see how bang these plays are at second base, and this is the opposite of what Chen-Min Wong.
Yes, this is not what he needs to be doing.
This is this is not the idea.
But, you talk about Perez's on-base percentage going down. That is exactly what they've said about his overuse. Like, there's really no question. He has been used more than any other catcher in baseball.
Yeah, he is. Even Yadi Molina is like, wow, you must be tired.
Yeah,
right.
3,812 innings caught since 13. That's number one. You guys are both right. Number one in baseball.
I'm going to drop something on you. We're talking about on-base percentage, okay? Over the last 30 seasons, there have been 880 players who have come to the plate 2,000 times. His walk rate is the 6th lowest. He does not take a walk. He will swing at I remember Bumgarner in the World Series.
I was just thinking the exact same thing when you said that.
Like,
yeah. When you get 2 strikes on him, you're like, yeah, this is.
It's like, here's what's going to happen. Bumgarner's not going to throw it anywhere near the plate. He's going to go after it, and the Giants are going to win the World Series. And it's exactly what happened.
It's almost as if maybe he should have ran for home. No, he shouldn't have run for home. No, he shouldn't have run.
He would have been meat.
For Wong, it was shoulder surgery in 2009 that had him have to rebuild his career and ended his time with the Yankees. Bases are full. He's trying to get his Yankees. So he's gone 93 and then a really good follow-up breaking ball. A shocking 93 the pitch before and a sharp breaking ball. And the count is 0-2 with the bases loaded.
That one frustrated Castro. He was unhappy with it.
And 93 for Wong is unbelievable. But, Darren, you talked about his shoulder surgery, and that's absolutely true. But the way he got to that is he changed his mechanics a little bit because he hurt his foot running the bases in Houston. And anytime anybody talks about whether the DH should be everywhere, Houston was a National League city at the time, they always point to Chen-Min Wong because that essentially ended his career as a successful starting pitcher.
Right in on the hands, Castro fights that one off and into right field for a base hit. The Yankees adding on. He didn't hit it hard. Wong will tell you, though, I did get it in where I wanted, but it was up. And when it's up like that, a hitter is able to do just enough to get it onto that green grass.
If he gets it up like that, then he's defeating what he's in there for.
He can get all of it. He can crush it, even 93 miles an hour.
But if that's low, that's probably never play.
That is probably never play. It is all. We talk about exit velocity a lot, but it's all about combining exit velocity with launch angle. You could hit the ball 600 miles an hour, hit it straight up, it's going to be out.
Six to 3 is the score. Wong again, that elbow down low. He's pushing everything uphill.
You can see what he was trying to do there. He was trying to get inside on the hands. Didn't quite get it enough. He wanted to get it really deep on that handle, but Castro did a good job kind of inside outing that ball, getting enough barrel on it to just dink it over the infielder's head. So really, Castro, fantastic job.
Having a nice night tonight.
To Will's point, that is a ground ball if that pitches at the knees,
Now, see, I like this. I like the fact that the Yankees may get up enough runs to where no more Miller and no more Chapman. The idea that, like, you got your Betances and already they're warming up the pen.
So that little bloop dink that we just saw there, right? That's the 5th time this year that exact combination of exit velocity and angle have happened. It was only hit 64 miles an hour, which sounds not great at all. 24 degrees of launch angle. It's the 5th time this year that's happened. All 5 have been hits. Right? It's the perfect combination.
We found the secret.
There is a certain point where if you hit the ball harder, it's what we call the donut hole. You're
Right.
going to hit it to the outfielder and it's an out.
Jason Shreve, Andrew Miller, both warming up in the pen. That's what you were talking about, Will. Maybe a chance to let Shreve get 3 outs.
So are we saying the Royals are happy that they might actually face somebody else first?
Good backer, I should say, over the inside corner. Here's the donut hole you're talking about, the Starlin Castro base hit.
Yeah, not crushed off the bat, 64 miles an hour, not that much, but only 178 feet, but it's the right 178 feet. It gets it over the head of the infielder. It's one of those things where it's not something you try to do. Nobody wants to hit the ball that lightly, but in terms of real live baseball games and getting runs on the board, perfect.
Well, we were talking earlier about hitters are batting 600 or over 600.
611.
611.
Balls over 100 miles an hour.
But they're batting 1,000 on balls. A lot like
that's
that.
specific with the Yankees.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure if I looked at all balls hit below 65 miles an hour, it would probably be like 50
right. So you're saying the best strategy is not to just not hit hard?
Well, that's very complicated. I'm sorry, I got distracted by Mark Teixeira getting called out on strikes against Chen Min-won.
Yeah.
I have lots of emotions right now.
We have beamed back to a time before ours.
We joke, but it's true. I can't even get pitch effect numbers on his really good seasons, Chen Min-won, because it wasn't there. Basically, in caveman days.
In 2006, he finished second. You guys remember that, to Johan Santana in the Cy Young Award voting.
As I was just told, Johan Santana that year 245 strikeouts. Chen Min-won that year 75 strikeouts.
Rocket shot foul. He's 92, 93 miles an hour. And the StatCast just a moment ago of the strikeout of Mark Teixeira, that comebacker.
Yeah, 93 for Chen Min-won. It's unbelievable. The fact that he can even get it up that high. It was a nice pitch. It had a little bit of cutback to it, but honestly, I think Teixeira, when he watches that, he's going to be kicking himself for letting that one go, especially on 2 strikes.
Pretty good pitch on the inside corner, back in there, 91. That one had more life to it. That had good dive. That was right at the knees. McCann didn't like the call. That's a strike. The
control's been a little off, but I have to say he's got better stuff than I realized he did.
Yeah, the movement's a little better than I thought. The velocity is definitely better than I thought. And, look, 3-2, 2 outs, bases loaded. And this next pitch is the ball game right here, as far as I'm concerned.
Ready for 93, ready for it in. The thing about that pitch, and it goes back to what Teixeira did, and McCann's showing it, that's just a tough pitch to keep fair. You can make contact on that pitch, but that's a real tough pitch to keep fair. And so Wong, give him credit. Right-handed pitchers will tell you to go from the right side all the way to the inner part of the strike zone to a left-handed hitter is one of the toughest things to do.
This at-bat's been really fascinating. The first 3 pitches in McCann, all outside, 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 and he let them all go by. The next 3 have all been low on the inside and been foul ball, strike, foul ball.
Yeah, arm, elbow, all below it, and he misses up. He's missed up a couple of times in a bases-loaded walk. So another run. The Yankees lead it by a score of 7-3.
And Andrew Miller sits down.
For McCann, RBI number 16 on the year. He singled and he plated a run with a walk.
Yeah, you can see what he was trying to do. He's trying to go up, which is not a bad strategy, but there's really no way he's going to swing at that pitch. I'd love to know what the meeting on the mound is about. So don't do that again.
Yes.
You see the bullpen options, some of which we will not see tonight unless things dramatically change. Some changes with that bullpen with Peter Moylan getting the call and Scott Alexander getting the call.
I love to see Joakim Soria back with the Royals because I remember him when the Royals were really down in the dumps for several years, and he was that ace closer. And everybody said, why are you holding on to a closer? You're a team that loses 95 games. You don't need a closer. Trade him and get some young talent. They didn't, and he blew out his arm. And then obviously they ended up becoming a very, very good team regardless, and now he's back with the team. It's almost sad in a way. He was there when they were terrible, missed the 2 runs to the World Series, and now here he is this year when they're kind of struggling along.
I feel like he was hanging on to be the all-star representative every year.
Right, that's right.
That was really it.
Carlos Beltran. Couple of walks, a strikeout and a pop out, but the Yankees trying to ice this thing. They lead it by a score of 7-3. MLB Plus is presented by Amazon Web Services. We bring StatCast to the Yankees and the Royals tonight. What is StatCast? Here's your answer.
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com's StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLBAM's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with 2 distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture, optical tracking, and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
And that's what you're part of tonight. We're glad to have you with us. StatCast, MLB Plus, presented by Amazon Web Services here tonight. Well, the lead got bigger, but Andrew Miller, he's tall enough to handle this opportunity. Certainly with a big lead, he comes on. You see the pitch type. This is what he has used this year.
Yeah, slider and four-seam fastball. And it's kind of similar to Betances, where he's got this really elite, dominating fastball, but he doesn't go to it as much as you'd think because he's also got this great breaking pitch. And when you can combine that with this fastball that's got this huge velocity difference, it makes him almost unhittable. Are you surprised to see him in the game? Anybody?
I mean, they haven't gotten that much work, I guess, of late. Like they had them stacked up for this tonight. The number of opportunities the Yankees are actually going to get to be able to hang on to leads 7, 8, 9 like this.
That is dark.
Not as much as they thought they were going to be when they put it all together.
But you're right. He didn't pitch last night. He did pitch the night before. Betances didn't pitch almost last week. Chapman didn't pitch last night.
Jim Duquette is joining us. Sorry, guys, he just hopped in. Jim Duquette is joining us at the ballpark. Aroldis Chapman in this mix now on the backside of Andrew Miller and Dylan Betances. And in your investigations in talking with the New York Yankees and how they plan to play this all out, you know, we could all guess what it all means, but what's your perspective on what it all means, those big three, how they plan to use them, the consistency? We see Miller out there tonight, Jim.
Well, one of the ways is the way it's kind of materialized tonight, you know, and their starting rotation wasn't great. I mean, obviously, Eovaldi can only get through 5, but when you're sitting there with those 3 big guys at the end and they're all relatively rested, all you have to do is really work on one inning, that 6th inning, and then you turn it over to those guys, and we know how good they've all been in their own right, in those positions. So this is, you know, the time. What Joe Girardi talked about, Brian Cashman said, you know, there'll be nights where we only have to go with 2 of them. The other guy gets a rest and can kind of rotate him around. That's the ideal situation. But in a situation like you're seeing right now, being able to shorten the game up like this after a mediocre start by Eovaldi is a huge advantage that most teams don't have.
Is there a notion that because this is such a big part of what they're trying to do, if the Yankees have gotten off to a slow start, the offense has struggled, the rotation has struggled. Is there a point, if things continue, if things don't turn around on offense, is there a point where, are they committed to this, Chapman being a free agent after the season? Is there a notion that having these things, having these assets, if things turn wrong for the Yankees, do they see it in that way, or are the Yankees not allowed to even think that way?
Well, they haven't been in that situation for a long time, but I do think that, the one thing Brian Cashman's been pretty straightforward on it, this mess that they're in right now is not the manager's or coach's fault. He does feel like there's underperforming players, but it's his fault for putting the team together. And so he's kind of taken on a lot of the blame here, and understandably so. So, I am curious. I think this is one of those eras now with the Yankees where, maybe we know the expectations are always high, but they're maybe not quite as high as if George Steinbrenner was out at the club. And if they are in that point where they have to push the reset button, I do expect a guy like Chapman would be available. I still think Miller would be available. The Brian Cashman was reserved in that information, obviously. But I think that he would be another guy that they could move and get some significant pieces for, and then go out back on the free agent market and try to re-sign Chapman at the very least.
Hey, Jim, I know we've all really been impressed by what Hicks has done with the Yankees since he's had a chance to play. Do you see him long-term as a guy who could be a starting outfielder, or is he still a kind of a fourth outfielder backup type for you?
You know what, Mike? It's tough because when I look at him from an evaluation standpoint, I'm not sure he's an everyday guy. I think they feel he is. But, as you see him play more, he does a little bit of everything to help you win a ballgame. Like tonight, earlier, that hustle, he hit into what most people would be a routine ground ball double play in the fourth inning. He ends up hustling it out and makes it a fielder's choice. And then the next hitter, Gregorius, hits a home run. So, he didn't have a hit, but he contributed to 2 runs in that inning, and that's really the difference. So, I think, as we watched him last week, we were talking about him as a poor defender in center field, and he's gotten more settled in that area. So I wouldn't rule out the fact that he could maybe be an everyday guy for them. Certainly a guy that can give you quality when Ellsbury, who seems to really be injury prone, when he goes down, you got a guy, a quality, significant piece that you can go and fill in on every, say, 2 or 3 weeks at a time. So I'm not convinced personally on the evaluation side he's an everyday guy yet.
Thank you, Jim. We appreciate it.
Hey, guys.
Jim Duquette. I mean, look, you look at the roster, and obviously it's an opportunity just to have a depth chart that has a real good athlete on it. Yeah. And again, like we talk about players that may always be raw, they may retire raw. You can't go wrong if your 25th guy, even if he moves down to that spot, is a great athlete.
And he's in his 20s. And again, this is a team that really needs guys like that. So yeah, you're going to see some mistakes and you're going to see some holes in his swing, but there's stuff that he can do that this team desperately needs someone young to be.
And the acquisition cost wasn't high. They gave up a backup catcher in John Murphy, who, a nice player, but he went to Minnesota and he's since been sent to the minors, even for the Twins. So I think that's a deal that the Yankees would redo again 10 times out of 10.
I still feel like a large part of this too is the Yankees figuring out their kind of competitive cycle here a little bit. This is a team that hasn't had a losing season since I think it's 1992 or 1993. This is a team that probably should have had one the last couple of years. It really speaks. They've overachieved. They got more to share in A-Rod than they were thinking last year. But this really feels like a team that is not one of the better teams. Their bullpen is their strength, and other than that, they're short. But they are. It does seem like they're waiting for these contracts. They're still paying off 2009.
They're a team very much in transition, right? They still have these guys who were part of the last good team, and they have guys who are here now, but Chapman could be on the move. And they don't have the farm system producing guys like they'd like to yet. So it's tough to see what the Yankees will be, I think, in 2 years from now.
I feel like they're keeping their powder dry until get the payroll back down, get A-Rod off, get the Share off, get Sabathia off, and then you start looking and start batting your eyes in Bryce Harper's direction.
It is an outstanding bullpen, certainly. Scott Alexander goes to work for the other bullpen, and he pitched in 9 games in AAA this year to a 2.57. Tim McMaster is with us out at the ballpark as well. And Tim, the conversation certainly has been about this bullpen, and the conversation continues with you about how good this bullpen is with that back 3.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Darren. Here in section 116, we continue to follow this game, and we've seen it so far with the 2 guys that were pitching the 8th and the 9th inning for most of the season so far, with John Batantis and Andrew Miller, 6 up, 6 down. Now maybe a little of the drama is gone now with the Yankees scoring a couple more runs. It's no longer a save situation, but sitting down here in the seats, I've actually heard multiple people around us have said you know, I got a lot to do tomorrow. I got to get to work, but I really want to see Aroldis Chapman pitch. So we're going to stick it out, and we're going to stay through the whole game. So that's kind of the excitement around here. People are just waiting, and it's an event. And I think it's kind of going back to the Enter Sandman days here at Yankee Stadium, where people used to get fired up for Mariano Rivera. You're going to see more and more of that with Chapman. Obviously, he's only pitched a couple of times so far, but this bullpen is electric, and it's almost fitting that these three guys that are finally together as the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning are kind of debuting against this Royals team that kind of started this whole trend.
Good stuff, Tim. We appreciate it. Tim McMaster reporting from Yankee Stadium. The vibe in the stands about that bullpen, how folks, even though it's a 7-3 lead and it's not easy to always to get in and out and get back to wherever part of whatever borough in which you live to get ready for work tomorrow, they want to stay and see Chapman pitch.
If there's one person on the Yankees that you do not want to miss, you don't want to go to a game and miss the transcendent talent there. And obviously there's some great players there, but you know, are there any numbers on how hard he throws? Has that ever been ranked by StatCast?
You know, it turns out he's incredibly uninteresting.
Oh yeah, he's kind of dull. Doesn't really do anything extra.
All right, I got one for you here. Since 2010 is when he made his major league debut. He has thrown 1,422 pitches, 100 miles or more. Sounds great. Okay.
Pretty good.
All of Major League, that 45% of all of Major League Baseball's pitches over 100 miles an hour are just from him, right? So he's thrown 1,400. The Major League Baseball's thrown 3,100. 45% of them are just from him.
And he's a one-inning reliever.
He's a one-inning reliever who, yeah, he doesn't pitch that often. He didn't pitch the first entire half of this season. It's like, you know, you try to compare him to Giancarlo Stanton from an offensive standpoint, and I think he's actually almost more impressive. We've never seen anything like it. And the fact that he's, I think in his 6th season, you know, these guys usually don't throw this kind of heat for that long, and he's still throwing as hard as ever. So every once in a while when he tries to drop in a changeup or something, it's absurd. It's like a 90-mile-an-hour changeup.
It's so mean.
It's
like the meanest pitch.
He is throwing in the bullpen, but so is Chase and Shreve. Chapman not throwing as much in earnest. And with 2 outs in the inning, I don't know that we'll see Aroldis Chapman in this game tonight.
I hope Chase and Shreve does not get booed if he runs out to the field.
Alexander, some pretty good stuff under the swing there, wicked swing, and a really good slider.
Yeah, Alexander has actually thrown some nice pitches, but he got added to the roster today, as did Peter Moylan, because the Royals put 2/5 of their rotation on the disabled list. Chris Medlin on the disabled list, Chris Young, who we saw get hit really hard the other night, on the disabled list, and so that's why Danny Duffy, it sounds like, is going to make a spot start. But you look at that Royals rotation, 2 of those guys are on the DL. Yordano Ventura has been walking the entire ballpark. Volquez, okay, you know, he's looked pretty good. It's a really weird spot, especially, you know, we talked about Kennedy looking okay, but, you know, still the Yankees have 7 runs on the board right now. That rotation, going back to what we talked about, the projections, this is the #1 reason why the projections did not like the Royals this year or last year or the year before, is because that rotation has not looked super impressive.
Right. And this year it looks like not only not super impressive, but it's starting to crumble very early. And the idea, it's weird that the Royals would be in a spot where, wow, they need a win from Kennedy. They really need Kennedy to be the guy to step up. That's kind of a scary thought about the guy that everyone was concerned about.
Kennedy is what, their second best, maybe their best starting pitcher?
I think so far. There's no question.
That's terrifying.
That is worrisome.
Ian Kennedy, but
this is the defending world champs.
Right. And we thought of this last year too, because they replaced James Shields with Edison Volquez, and that did not seem like a step up. And then obviously they went out and got Johnny Cueto later in the season. But that kind of, while I don't 100% agree with everything the projections say, on that point I completely understand.
And that's the thing, is, you know, that you're right. The rotation was the notion. That was why the depths. Right. And we're seeing now that reflected.
7-3, the Yankees lead it. Austin Romine got the start behind the plate tonight. Brian McCann's the DH, a little slow roller. There's an easy chance, and if you're just joining us with that 7-3 score, the Yankees with 3 outs to get. They have Shreve and Chapman warming in the bullpen. I'm not quite sure who they will go with. Probably Shreve. In the meantime, if you're all just joining us, we'll walk through our in-game StatCast, and we'll have the help of the guys here with what has gone on tonight. But we start with Nathan Eovaldi and getting Alcides Escobar really good split-fingered fastball diving here. And a swing and a miss. Down that one goes. So that's how we start things. Then there's the Castro homer.
Yeah, we've talked about this one a lot. You know, none of these balls are really hard hit off of Ian Kennedy, and 100 miles an hour. It's good. It's not elite. 388, kind of the same thing. Chase Hadley, we talked about this one, 356. What did I say? 5% of balls hit that hard or end up being home runs. It's just perfectly placed balls. It's kind of a rough deal for Kennedy, who did not get really hit around that hard tonight, but just gave up these home runs in the right spot. A tough night for him. And for Chase Hadley, it's his first extra base hit of the entire season. So, even though it was only 98 miles an hour, I'm sure he will sleep better tonight.
And of course, this is the Kennedy thing. This is the whole idea of who Kennedy is.
Yes.
This is the problem.
This was not a cheat.
This one was not.
I should go back and I should look at the right fielder, who probably moved about 3 feet, right? Because he didn't even turn around for that ball, because that was crushed. 98 miles an hour, 99 miles an hour out of the hand is very good. As Darren said, below average extension, so he lost some perceived velocity on that, and Alex Gordon knew exactly what to do with that.
As the home run that when he retires and he thinks back to his career, he will think about. That was the perfect.
Well, I would need to ask him that someday. I want to wait like 5 years and say, you remember that ball you hit off Nathan Eovaldi?
He's like, oh, the one that was perfect, I was right on.
And he'll look at me and go, what are you talking
No, I don't have to believe people either.
Good spin rate on that fastball gives a perception of rise, and then this. Didi Gregorius on a hanging breaking ball with a home run.
Yeah, it's another sub 100-mile-an-hour home run. That doesn't happen that often, and that happened twice in one night to Ian Kennedy, and that really goes to show you the effects of the ballpark on a fly ball pitcher.
So that's our in-game StatCast, MLB Plus, presented by Amazon Web Services.
By all accounts, Shreve not booed upon coming in.
Nope.
Instead of Chapman.
Yeah, and now we're in a situation where if Chapman comes in, that means things have gone terribly wrong.
Chapman was throwing out there. Jason Shreve comes on. He gets the assignment.
Or just 2 base runners, I guess. That puts the tying run on deck. Makes the safe situation.
Yeah, I suppose so. We shouldn't undersell Shreve, who's actually been a pretty effective reliever for the Yankees. Last year, he got off to a great start. 11 earned runs in his first 50 appearances, and then 9 in his final 9. Fatigue, tipping pitches, uncertain which one, but yeah, he's been a lot better this year. When he gets to 2 strikes, he's got this weird split change hybrid. It's got a lot of movement on it. And with 2 strikes, he throws it 80% of the time. So that's his deal. Try to get ahead with the fastball. And then, he's got a slider as well. And then the split change, 17% of the time. But when it's 2 strikes, that's his big pitch.
Chesler Cuthbert to lead things off. We'll take a look back here at some point during his at-bat if we have a chance. His double and his base running exploits in the 4th inning. And we'll do it right now. Oh, no, this is the defensive play. My apologies, folks. 465 feet, the route efficiency. What does that mean, 98.5? As simple as it looks?
That means that if he had gone exactly from point A to point B in a straight line, it'd be 100%. So he did not really waste that much movement getting there.
Yeah, fine play leaning over and knocking that camera well wall down. Jason Shreve. When he pitched in college, he pitched to Bryce Harper. That was his catcher at College of Southern Nevada.
Imagine if Harper would have stayed a catcher.
Well, I wonder if he might have delayed his ascent to the big leagues, right? Probably would have taken him another 2 years to be big league worthy as a catcher. But yes, that would be unbelievable if he could hit like he hits as a catcher.
There's a hard hit baseball and a hanging curveball, but Headley puts his nose on it. 2 outs to a Yankee victory as they lead it by a score of 7-3.
So a loss here puts the Royals two games under, and they're 6 behind the White Sox coming in. I haven't seen the White Sox score if they're even playing tonight.
Well, the White Sox are not going to keep up this pace.
Right.
Now they've been off to a really good start, better than I expected, no doubt.
Hey, but wins in the bank.
Wins in the bank, that's real. Let's say it's still early. The Royals absolutely can get back in it, but with the issues in the rotation, I guess the way I'd put it is it's getting late early.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There's no obvious place where the Royals feel like you need a lot of hitters to get hot, and with Moustakas out of the lineup, there's just not a lot of guys.
You need Kane to really be on the start of a rebound, which is possible. You need Alex Gordon to make better contact, also possible. But it's hard to see a turnaround for Omar Infante at this point. It's hard to see Alcides Escobar start being an above-average hitter at this point. Perez is what he is, runs into some home runs, but he doesn't get on base a lot. The offense, I think, it's going to be kind of in trouble unless all these guys get back to what they were last year. And the starting pitching has to really take a huge step up. And I don't know how that happens because the guys are hurt. And you can see the standings here. Like you said, 6 games behind. They're about to be 6.5, if they don't come back in this game. It's not over. It's certainly not. It's way too early for that. And then the wild card, it's an entirely separate thing. But they're in a tough spot. And I think that's for certain.
Leaving his feet, Didi Gregorius, and Teixeira can't dig it out. A great effort there. Didi Gregorius. Orlando getting the call to pinch hit there. Hit it hard toward the hole. Paulo Orlando, the Brazilian native, is on. What a great effort by Didi. Fun to watch him play shortstop.
Yeah, and the one thing we know about Didi Gregorius is he has an elite throwing arm for a shortstop. We measured this last year. He had the #1 hardest throwing arm for a shortstop, and we did our competitive throws where we don't care about lobs and whatnot. #1 for him, and he actually has reached 95 on a throw, which is really impressive. It's exactly what you want out of a shortstop. Hasn't been much with the bat, but defensively he's been a nice fit for them.
Yeah, you have to rush that through Orlando's face.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, Paulo Orlando after 10 years.
Oh, look at the funny spin and the reaction there. Another chance to dig it out, and Teixeira makes the play. I'll tell you what, Headley had that one spinning like it fell into a rabbit hole. That's a great play by Chase Headley, and the Yankees win it by a score of 7-3. A cut on that baseball. Teixeira ends up holding on to it. That's a great play, fun way to end things. 2 great plays on the left side of the infield. And the Yankees win it. They take this series 3-1, and they have now won 7 of their last 10 against the Kansas City Royals since the start of last season. They win this one tonight.
Yeah, interesting game for the Yankees. We saw that Eovaldi didn't really have the performance that I think anybody was hoping for, but they had some really nicely placed fly balls. Everybody talks about too many homers, right? They have too many. That's never ever a thing. Home runs are the best thing you can absolutely ever do, and I think they will be happy winning as many games as possible with home runs and some pretty good bullpen work. And I'm going to go back to Kirby Yates because that inning was
Kirby
important.
Yates, unheralded hero tonight. Listen, as much concern as there has been from the Yankees, this is now 3 or 4 from the defending world champs. I know it's hard.
3 or 4, and they do take it, and it was a fine play, too.